Oh, I should. Okay, I think... Yeah. Ohio voters by gender. Wow. Let's go to that one. Do I need to... Let's make it a smidge bigger. Ah!
An interesting day for the former vice president. I was with him on two previous election days in 2008 and 2012. Both those days were flights to Chicago to join President Obama, but today he'll be here in Delaware, spending the night watching results with his family and potentially coming to the stage that's set behind me to potentially address the nation one way or the other.
Yeah, undoubtedly, Micah, a sentimental and emotional day, whatever the outcome. Monica, President Trump encouraged his supporters early on to vote in person, not by mail. He is still questioning the mail-in ballots, particularly in Pennsylvania. What are you hearing about any legal challenges the Trump campaign might be preparing or what they're considering here?
Republicans are very much expecting legal battles, Allison, and that's why they've spent the last 6 to 8 months preparing lawyers and election-related lawsuits. They are ready to deploy those, particularly in Pennsylvania, as you mentioned. And yes, the president falsely implied last night during some of his very last rallies of the 2020 cycle that there will be cheating going on somehow in Pennsylvania if they're counting ballots after Election Day. But of course, the Supreme Court ruled that that would be allowed in some cases. And we should again remind everybody, the president has sort of implied that he doesn't like the fact that after tonight, ballots will continue to be counted. That's always what happens, and just to a higher degree this year because of the coronavirus pandemic and the volume of mail-in ballots, that will take longer process and depending on which state and state rules. So while he continues to raise the specter of widespread voter fraud, we need to remind everybody there is simply no evidence of that, and certainly not in Pennsylvania. It will take days to have a full picture of what this will look like, which is completely natural given the health crisis, Allison.
Monica and Mike, great to see you both. It's kind of fun, all being dressed up. We're all out of the house again. It almost feels like a normal election day. It's kind of cool.
It's been
nothing
great.
like election night, though.
Great to see you guys. Thank you. The polls in Pennsylvania close in less than 2 hours, and as we have been saying, this is a state that could decide who becomes the next president. Nearly 2.5 million people have already voted there, but
get rid of all the other stuff.
Mail-in ballots until tomorrow. MSNBC anchor Ali Velshi is outside a polling station in Philadelphia. Ali, it's great to see you. I feel like we haven't chatted in a long time. President Trump was the first Republican to take Pennsylvania since 1992, winning the state by less than a percentage point in 2016. Peter Alexander and Carol Lee are reporting today that the Trump campaign is concerned about turnout there. What have you been saying?
Why do I have such a mess on the floor?
Yeah, so Donald Trump won the state by 0.7%, 44,000 votes. So he is looking to desperately to hold on to this thing. If you look at all the combinations of ways that Donald Trump can get 270 electoral votes, most of those ways run through Pennsylvania. If he doesn't win Pennsylvania, it's going to be a hard night for him. So as Monica was saying, depending on how Florida goes and North Carolina goes, Pennsylvania will become more important as the course of the night goes through. Here's the issue. We're in Philadelphia. Joe Biden's going to win Philadelphia. He was here. In fact, I think he's still here. He's been here.
Is he? Is he really?
Will he win it by the kind of margins that Barack Obama had, or by the kind of margins that Hillary Clinton had? Because a lot of places in the rest of the state are red. There's definitely a lot of strength, a lot of Democratic strength in Philadelphia.
Oh, I need to.
And in Allegheny, which is Pittsburgh. But the issue is turnout. Now, we're not seeing lineups right now at most polling booths, but we have heard up to 65% turnout so far, if you count people in person and mail-in ballots. Raheem Ellis was reporting upward of 70% in another part of Philadelphia. So no lineups here. In fact, I had people coming up.
No lineups as of yet.
I brought food. I brought snacks for people in line. There's no lineup. There were lines earlier this morning. There have been about 50 instances of phone calls about voter intimidation in the Philadelphia area. We've heard most of those were resolved without incident. About an hour from here in Berks County, there's a problem at one poll where people are lined up and they have not been able to process the ballots, but they're working on that right now. But that's what we have at the moment.
So who's intimidating voters? Come on.
Uneventful in Philadelphia, but this is going to become very important over the course of the next few hours.
Absolutely, and at least friendly people offering snacks, Ali, that I hope they left with the local MSNBC anchor who might be hungry.
Yeah, that's right. Feed the anchor. It's always welcome.
It's a great idea. Let me ask you, Ali, you mentioned this. Philadelphia is key. Joe Biden there today telling supporters that Philly could be key to winning this election. What are Pennsylvania voters there telling you about the candidates, even though we know that Philadelphia very likely to go in Joe Biden's favor?
We'll see.
Yeah, look, I've been around this state. Last weekend I was in Luzerne County, which everybody's looking at because it was a county that voted for Obama and then voted for Trump.
Come on, where's my poll?
By Donald Trump about fracking, about Joe Biden's position on fracking. He's hoping to have some impact, but not in Philadelphia. People in Philadelphia are not really worried about fracking. He can take his glasses off because they're foggy. I spoke to two voters actually just a little while ago at this.
Do they work in the industry?
One of the things Donald Trump's been saying today on Twitter and this morning on Fox is he's worried about this concept of delaying the outcome of the vote for mail-in ballots, counting them on Friday, is not only a bad idea and undemocratic and unfair. He said it'll lead to violence in Philadelphia. You know, Philadelphia has had some tension in the last week. There was a police shooting in West Philadelphia, and the National Guard was out for that. The National Guard is here, but not for election preparedness. There are actually no indications of violence in Philadelphia tonight. Here's what two voters told me a couple of hours ago.
It was my first time voting in a presidential election this year, so I was really proud, and it was a very easy process, no line, just got in
was saying earlier today, and he's tweeted out such, that he thinks this whole way it's going down in Philadelphia, including the fact that mail-in ballots can be counted until Friday, it's not just a bad idea, but it's going to lead to violence. He's talking about that. You look very perplexed by that.
I don't agree with that. I don't think it's going to lead to violence per se, at least not in my city, you know?
I feel as though in Philadelphia, a lot of us are going to be pretty neutral, it's not going to be a lot of violence here at all.
So that's the situation for us here in Philadelphia. We're obviously going to be watching the rest of the country very closely to determine how important the results from Philadelphia are to this election. Allison?
Absolutely, Ali Velshi. And, you know, maybe after the election, when we're all back here at 30 Rock, we could talk about some kind of product, some kind of new business idea to help with the fogging glasses. I have not figured this out yet. You put glasses on, you put a mask on, and there's just no winning that battle.
I get people tweeting me all the time, put tape here, do that, put on your glasses.
Doesn't help.
This happens to me all the time. I cannot figure it out.
I can't either. We're going to work on that. You and I will come up with something, we'll get rich.
Oh, wait, what is... No, you can't do that.
More than
Gotta
10 million
eat the
people
rich.
already voted in Florida, according to the state's Division of Elections. The counties along the I-4 corridor there could determine the outcome. Among them, Pinellas County, which has voted for the winning president 9 out of 10 times since 1980. That's where we find NBC News correspondent Kerry Sanders. Kerry, early vote counts show Democrats have a slight advantage in Florida. What are you seeing? What are you hearing on the ground there?
Well, when we look at Pinellas County, as you just pointed out, 40 years of picking the proper president-elect. And so all eyes are on Pinellas County. Certainly both campaigns are looking at this county.
Where did you get your polls from?
In this county as of 5:20 p.m. First of all,
I need your secrets.
79.4% of registered voters in the state of Florida have, or in Pinellas County, have voted here. That's a tremendous number, certainly a record. Now, if you're wondering who those voters were, we break it down. 44.2% Republicans, 45.48% Democrats, and then let's zero in on that no party affiliation. That 36.7%, that is the key block to watch here in Pinellas County. And because Pinellas County often reflects the state, if you look at that group of independent voters, if they break for one candidate or the other, that'll generally tell us where things go. Now, the polls are still open here in Pinellas County, as they are in the Eastern time zone here in Florida. They close at 7, and then we have the Central time zone where the polls will close because Florida has 2 time zones. But as early as 7:10, 7:15 p.m., we're going to start seeing some results from places like here in Pinellas County. A lot of enthusiastic supporters that you hear over my shoulder. We did get a chance to
Are they
talk to
enthusiastic?
some of those folks
I couldn't
who
tell.
Didn't do early voting, didn't do mail-in voting, but rather decided today was the day. It was part of something that they wanted to be a part of Election Day. They waited in lines here. Some line lasted more at one point for more than an hour. Let's listen to what some of the voters told us about participating in this monumental and very important history.
Are you a pseudo-Trump supporter?
It feels good to vote for me, and I wanted to vote in person today because I didn't want to worry about slow mail. I didn't want to worry about any problems. I want to make sure that I put in the ballot myself.
I said, for me, you know, there's a sense of camaraderie coming on voting day, so that's why I wanted to come this morning.
We just like voting on the day.
The ritual?
Yeah, the day, election day.
The fact that there might be violence in the United States following an election, your reaction?
Yeah, I think it's very upsetting. I mean, we're a democracy. You have
Republic.
whoever you wish to vote for, and so do I. But I'm not going to attack you because you didn't vote the way I voted, nor should you attack me because I didn't vote the way you thought I should vote. That's what democracy is all about.
Whoever won, whoever lost, we're going to accept it. I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican. We have to accept it because in this country we have democracy.
That last voter that you heard speaking there, he's originally from Haiti, and I really think it underscores his feeling about the fact that we must accept what the results are when they gather. Either it's all gathered up tonight or whether we have to wait some time. Because in Haiti,
there we go.
Following much of the politics over there for 50 years. So to think about him saying that we must accept it really says a lot, Allison.
It sure
Yeah, it
does. Gary,
does.
his beautiful accent gave him away. And just all of the folks that you spoke with today sharing the sentiment that we have different opinions, and that's okay. That's what democracy is all about, respecting people's right to vote as they choose. Carrie, a big concern for a lot of Americans is how long it could take before we have results. It could take several days in some state, but I know Florida got a head start in counting those ballots. When are we expecting to have final results there?
I think most states got a pretty good head.
It's really fortunate that Florida had its meltdown. I mean, to look at it in the rearview mirror in 2000, because they built a system now that works. So what we've been doing in the state of Florida is folks have been voting by mail-in or in person. And as those envelopes have been arriving, the
I didn't know I had more of this. This is wonderful.
Running them through the computers. The computers already know what those vote totals are, but nobody else knows. Not even the supervisor of elections in each of the 67 counties knows. But they have those vote totals. So at around 7:10, 7:15, we're going to start seeing those.
How many people that they hacked the election on? I mean, what?
Very quickly. I want to put a little caveat in there because mail-in ballots tend to lean towards Democrats. In-person voting, especially day of voting.
Oh, why is that? The dead vote Democrat.
So if you see early vote totals coming back in Florida at 7:15, 7:30, and it starts telling you that Joe Biden is winning Florida, hold on, give it some time, let it work its way through. By tonight, I think maybe at around 11 o'clock tonight, if the system holds as it's expected to do, we'll probably see a pretty close decision, a pretty close timetable of the decision being made in the state of Florida. And of course, Florida has 29 electoral votes, Allison. This is a gargantuan amount of electoral votes for whoever wins it.
Yeah, it's a biggie, and we will certainly be watching Florida. Carrie, whoever wins tonight, you have certainly won already for the most enthusiastic group of voters we have seen in a live shot.
Oh, wow, yeah. They're pretty enthusiastic.
Okay, absolutely.
Good morning, welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school,
what do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work, we're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Good morning, welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school,
what do you guys
blah,
think?
blah, blah,
or
blah,
back
blah.
to work, we're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an
Why
American
are
way
you
of death
jumping on me?
across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Weeknights at 10 on
The Last Word.
MSNBC.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Jordan, to explore her life's journey from Oakland to
Not the
Washington
person that
on
you
my
want her to
6-part
be.
podcast,
Blah,
Kamala,
blah, blah.
Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
A real close-knit group of nurses who pulled
Where
together when your
is-
boss needed help battling coronavirus.
You're not just any patient, you're their friend. These folks saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
News. News. Got a big bunch of stuff for that, didn't they?
they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The wind standing these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
Nice.
We now have
Oh, I should go. No, no.
Should
Give me
people
that.
be concerned?
Back to the sauna.
With Lester Holt.
More than 3 million people in Ohio voted before Election Day, shattering previous early voting records. Polls closed there at 7:30 Eastern, and folks are still turning out. NBC News correspondent Kelly O'Donnell joining
Stress
us now
goes down.
from Columbus, Ohio. Kelly, what have the lines been like today? How has the turnout been?
Well, Allison, good to be with you. There have been a consistent sort of level of lines, and we were told at this particular spot
Get over
in
there.
Franklin County, which is the Columbus area, that early this morning they had a very robust group of people waiting, and so like half an hour, 45-minute wait. In the hours that we've been here, it's been steady, consistent voting, but not long lines and not difficulty for those who want to get in before 7:30 when polls close. Of course, as it goes in many places, if you're in line at 7:30, they will mark the end of that line, and those people who might not get in the door right at 7:30, but if they've been in line, they get a chance to still vote. And then at that point, that is when the state is able to begin counting those early ballots that you referred to that have been processed today, but the running of them, the calculation and tally, does not happen until polls are
Still
closed.
working.
So the first big batch of results that we would expect to get back would be from those early mail-in ballots. And statistically and traditionally and demographically, people in both parties expect that those will heavily favor Joe Biden because the early vote tends to be more Democratic. We'll see how that plays out. But one of the things that's been important about knowing that is that understanding that the results may shift through the night as returns come in, and that an early lead for one candidate may not reflect the overall election. So we'll have to see where that goes. Of course, 4 years ago, 2016 was a big year for Donald Trump. He won this state by a sizable margin. All sides say it's going to be closer this time, and it could be something where Joe Biden can win Ohio. It could be something.
Oh, look at that steam.
So we've seen lots of voting today, lots of activity, but in the places where we have been, just anecdotally, it's been a comfortable pace. It has not been a burden on voters having to wait too long. Allison?
Kelly, we've heard some anecdotes like that across the country today where I think people got up early. They wanted to make sure they got in. They waited a little bit, and then as the day went on, maybe the lines just weren't quite so bad. We did hear that Franklin County had some tech issues today at the polls. What happened and what's the latest there?
Well, very early on,
Steamy.
that there was some lack of synchronicity between the
Oh.
electronic poll book, like the list of
Doesn't
registered
take long
voters
for it to
available
rise up.
electronically. So the backup is to use the paper polling books. It's not about the vote itself. It's not about the calculation. It's about the check-in point for voters where they can come in, show their identification, find out their specific precinct, those kinds of things. And they went back kind of old school with the paper polling books. So again, not an
I like
impact
paper
on
polling.
the votes that are cast and how they're tallied, but part of the process for voters as they were going through that today. So the Secretary of State had that backup plan of the paper backup. They used that. And we've checked in with the office, and they have not told us of any real areas of concern in terms of any irregularities or troubles with voting. And that also may be a sign of so many people voting early. One of the other sort of differences in pacing that we've seen is in a normal year, you'd have that early morning rush, you'd have a lunchtime rush, and you'd have an after-work crowd. Well, we're in a pandemic. Many people are
Working from home.
or they're not in their usual kind of work environment. So even that, in terms of the rhythm of the voting day, feels a little different this year. Allison?
Yeah, Kelly, it seems that everything is just a little bit different this year.
Come on.
For a moment about
Get
the
it.
history there in Ohio. The state has a nearly flawless record of choosing the president. What are you hearing from voters there? I realize this is quite a big deal. They usually get it right.
It is something that is a point of pride, and one of the ways that makes Ohio a battleground for the quadrennial event that is the election. Truly a swing state. because they have gone for Democrats and Republicans and back and forth over time.
That's nice to know, the state that has control.
Elections is, as Ohio goes, so goes the nation. So the predicting factor has been so high. You go back to 1960, Ohio voted for Richard Nixon. That was John F. Kennedy's year, so that was a miss. But other than that, they've gotten it
I think
right.
we've got it higher than we've gotten it before.
No Republican has ever won the White House without winning Ohio. He won it last time. He would more than likely need to win it again tonight if he is to get a second term. Just the math in terms of that available 18 votes.
Come on, get in there.
In terms of electoral votes. And how would you make that up without Ohio? So that's a big, big piece of it. There are ways for Joe Biden to get there without Ohio. But Ohio is hoping, voters certainly, that they can keep that streak of knowing the pulse of the country, whether it goes Democrat, Republican, back and forth. So that's the history. Will Ohio live up to that history tonight? That's something we'll be watching.
I think I can turn the sauna off for the moment.
Ohio also gets 10 days after Election Day for counting of mail-in ballots or military ballots or those kinds of things. It's also had a history of being able to get a bulk of the vote done by 11 or midnight or what have you. So we might hear a lot about Ohio's results tonight, or it may take a little longer, hard to know. But because there was such a huge...
Okay, I need to replace that beer case in the sauna
to begin running them at 7:30, that could give us
while we're still mucking about with
fairly early in the evening. And
the
again,
important stuff.
That as the hours go by, the areas where President Trump might have greater strength may come in later. So a snapshot at 8 or 9 p.m. might be quite different than what you'd see at midnight, for example.
Kelly, we will be watching to see if that great Ohio tradition holds or if that goes out the window too in 2020. Always wonderful to see you. Thank you so much.
It may just do that.
Trump won Michigan by less than 11,000 votes in 2016. Support from blue-collar and white rural voters helped Trump turn the state red after...
Yeah, well, that may be a factor again.
They are closed at 9 p.m. Eastern. NBC News correspondent Heidi Prisbilla joining us now from Detroit. Heidi, you spoke to the Michigan Secretary of State earlier. What did she tell you about the turnout today?
Yeah, Ellison, Michigan is a very decentralized system, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, so it is going to take a while for those results to come in, but she told us that does not mean that we don't already know a lot, just based on these overall turnout numbers. Look, in 2016, the way that Donald Trump won this state was because turnout was depressed in major urban areas like Detroit, like Lansing, but now she says that we are seeing blockbuster turnout. Take a listen.
We're already seeing record vote by mail turnout or absentee turnout, and judging by the folks who participated today, we're going to really see probably more people vote in Michigan this year than ever before.
Shower dirtiness off after all this.
We've also seen 18,000
We're going to be getting the results soon.
Today, eligible citizens. So we're seeing a lot of new voters as well, all across the state, particularly in our larger jurisdictions, and a lot of smooth experiences.
Don't want to be
as well, which is great.
Tipsy when I go to bed.
And the Secretary of State also told us specific geographic surges. They are taking place, for instance, here in Detroit, where turnout was depressed in 2016. This is a majority blue area. We're seeing turnout.
I wonder why.
Turnout in Ann Arbor. What are those? Those are college towns where younger people are showing up, including on the same day that they vote, registering to vote. So take all of those things together, and you can see why Democrats are feeling confident in this state where Donald Trump had his narrowest margin of victory in 2016.
Heidi, given the record early and absentee voting that we are seeing this year, what are election officials doing to count ballots as efficiently as possible? I know they got a lot on their hands this year.
Oh, do I need, I think I need to bring this one in.
Ballots just starting this morning.
Do I have, I think I need to go and get another crate.
3.2 million come in. So what you saw was an epic marshaling of resources here, including the major sports teams, the Lions and the Pistons renting out their stadiums and their arenas, allowing for votes to be counted so that the poll workers can be socially distanced. And in the Pistons arena, for instance, they were having trainings for weeks before the election to get all of these volunteer citizens up to speed so that they could start first thing right at 7 a.m. to start feeding those machines so that we will be getting results not only from the in-person votes, which we're expecting may be tilting a little bit more red at the same time that we're getting these absentee votes, which may be in Joe Biden's favor. The Secretary
Be
of State
surprised what you find. Just saying.
All at the same time. So really an epic effort here by the city, as well as officials all around the state during a pandemic to recruit poll-workers to come in and get the job done. Even so, it may still be a while
55 kilograms.
all the ballots counted. She told us possibly 80 hours, up to 80 hours, Allison.
Wow. Heidi, Michigan is also allowing open carry on Election Day. I know some folks there were worried about voter intimidation leading up to today. How are people feeling about voting today? What have you heard? Has this been an issue or a concern?
We've been at a number of polling locations. We've interviewed the mayor in Sterling Heights. We've talked to the AG. She was visiting all kinds of polling locations. All
High concept video horror.
And they just didn't see it. It just didn't happen. And the only issue really was
an armed populace. Armed society is a polite society.
To voters in Dearborn, but the FBI said, look, that's nothing out of the ordinary. We always have shenanigans like this around the election, and there's no indication that this was any kind of broad effort to suppress the vote, or that, frankly, it had really any effect.
All right, Heidi, thank you so much. We appreciate your input from Greater Michigan and the Detroit area tonight on election night.
Thank you.
Joe Biden looking to put North Carolina back in the blue column, and Durham County could help him do that. Voters there have backed the Democrat in every presidential election since 1976. NBC News correspondent Tremaine Lee joining me now from Greensboro, North Carolina. Tremaine, black voters, a key voting bloc for Democrats. You have been speaking to a few of them today.
What are they
telling you about the importance of this election in 2020?
Allison, I'll tell you what, after a year in which COVID-19 disproportionately impacted black folks and black communities, and unrest over police violence also consumed them. But what they say is also concerning is 4 years of what they perceive as Donald Trump's racism and racist rhetoric. And so they said today, when they voted, they wanted to see a change.
Oh, okay.
They want their voices to be heard. Let's take a listen.
We have to change the mindset of our country. I grew up in the 50s and 60s here in Durham. I fought through the civil rights movement. I marched with Ben Ruffin. I met Martin Luther King. I fought in the 50s and 60s. I see us going backwards. This can't continue. This cannot continue.
There's that deep concern that after all the struggle and all of the fighting for rights, that here we are in this position again, and these voters said, hopefully, maybe now is the time for change.
Tremaine, more than 4 million people in North Carolina voting early. What kind of voter turnout have you been seeing at the polls today? Did most folks
really cool turnout?
This afternoon, this evening?
That was the question. After early voting, we saw
so if you've got it all done early, that means you can count it, get it counted easier, right?
So many folks across the country and North Carolina had to wait so long to vote. Today, state county officials are saying, in Guilford County, where we are in Greensboro, very few lines at all. And so when we were out there over in Durham, we also didn't see much. But those who did vote today said they were intentional about voting today because it was special for them. They didn't want to mess around with any absentee voting or any mail-in ballots. They wanted to be there to make their
Some of us vote absentee because that's how we do it.
Didn't want to mess around. They were showing up, and others saying they like the tradition of Election Day, so they were still going out today. Tremaine, we do have some early results from the NBC News exit poll of early and Election Day voters, and according to that, about a third of voters said the economy was the most
nice
important
polls.
issue when they voted.
Who'd you get to do the surveys?
The most important issue for 21% of voters across the U.S., while another 18% said the coronavirus outbreak was the most important issue for them. What are voters there telling you about what's driving them to the polls? Which of these issues have been coming up in your conversations?
About all three, but let's not mistake it. When you list those three, the economy, COVID-19, and unrest and everything, there is no disconnect between the way that black folks have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 and the loss of these hourly wage workers, et cetera, and then engaging with the system on every level, whether it's police or otherwise. And so that's exactly
Man, that unemployment, though.
After 4 years, especially after this last year, it's been tough on a lot of folks. And this is
all those Democrat cities shutting down businesses.
And hopefully push for some change.
Tremaine, we're also keeping a close eye on the Senate race there between incumbent Tom Tillis and his Democratic challenger Cal Cunningham. Tell us about voter enthusiasm there for the down ballot candidates. Are people amped up for this race?
They really are. I mean, on one hand, it's kind of been a soap opera that's consumed the state, right? On one hand, you have the Democrat, Cal Cunningham. There's a sexy scandal. On the right, you have the incumbent Tom Tillis, who contracted COVID while engaging with the White House in these better events.
So contracting the coof is a bigger scandal than, oh... Man.
But talking to folks, they say, and you know, when you talk to people on the ground, they say it's not just about the federal elections. You know, our state representatives, our federal representatives, it really does matter. So they definitely are thinking about this. It's on their mind. But again, you can't get around the big ticket, Biden and Trump.
Yeah, you certainly can't. Tremaine Lee in North Carolina, great to see you. A tight race in Arizona where Joe Biden and President Trump are tied at 48% with likely voters, according to the last NBC News Marist College poll in the state. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard caught up with voters in Maricopa County.
I went too far.
Here on the ground today, you're seeing a Republican advantage. More than 2-1 Republicans over Democratic voters that are voting here actually in person. This is per
wow, they're so brave.
By Maricopa County Recorder's Office. At the same time here, we should note the Democrats were far outpacing Republicans among early ballots that were returned. And that is why Republican operatives that I talked to here in the state said they needed to see this high in-person turnout, which they are getting right now. Yet at the same time, I think it is important that we look at this race tonight here in Arizona under this lens. Back in 2016, there were 7%
oh, no, I did. Okay, cool. Yeah. I made it.
7% 2016. Here in 2020, that number is now 2%. And so the question is, with that 5-point difference there, how much over the course of the rest of the day can Republicans continue to juice their turnout here on Election Day itself? We are still waiting for some numbers when it comes to the rural part of the state, but also those that are dropping off their mail-in ballot in person. We don't have that data yet. I want to let you hear.
Yeah, that's the good way to do it, and then you know it gets to the poll box.
Didn't vote in 2016. These are the types of voters that the Trump campaign needs more of. Take a listen.
In 2016, I did not vote.
This time
I think that there's no choice with all the destruction that's going on in the country and the disease candidates that are available.
Have you seen the unrest on the side of the left that's going on in the country? Yeah.
Is how many folks like that gentleman are coming out here today across the state of Arizona. Donald Trump won it.
Maybe quite a few.
Back in 2016. And troubling for this campaign is when you look at independents. Polling has consistently shown over the months that Donald Trump is underwater, as much as up to 20% among independents. And
who's polling?
About 1/3 of the electorate here. So that 3.5 percentage point win that he had in 2016, there's very little room for error here when you're looking at this campaign over these next hours.
Who's got the most excitement? Come on, guys.
Close night out of the state of Arizona, Allison.
A historic day in Green Bay, Wisconsin. For the first time, the Packers are opening up their indoor tailgating venue to voters. That's where we find NBC News correspondent Kevin Tibbles at the Johnsonville Tailgate Village. Kevin, what are you hearing from voters there?
Well, Allison, first off, yes, we're just steps away from Lambeau Field, obviously the temple of football here in Green Bay. Just behind me is the
temple, the holy edifice.
And the real good thing for voting here today is the fact that, in spite of the fact we're in Green Bay, Allison, it was over 60 degrees. There were lineups outside this building even before the polling started this morning, and people are starting to drop by after.
Everybody's excited to vote. That's cool. That's good.
No matter who you are voting for, Republican or Democrat, many of these people were saying to us that this was the most important election that they were taking part in their lifetime. Have a listen.
They're not wrong. How did you get a population of exactly 50-50?
What's the big issue for you?
I would say the economy.
Jobs?
Yeah.
I think that affects everybody.
Any issues this
It
time around
does.
that are
Have you seen how many people get depressed when they don't have a job?
For me, it's like pro-life, things like that.
Now, when you're listening to these people, one of the things that I picked up or noticed is that a lot of people standing in line here today were actually reticent to tell us which way they were going. I think, and a number of people said this to us, that the way the division, the way the country has been divided over the last 4 years, many people aren't really publicly saying which way they're
Who
going.
are you blaming for that?
We noticed that right throughout the day here. I think that probably has another...
If you were outside in public and on the news, you wouldn't say who you're voting for publicly either.
Did absentee voting and voting by mail. Some 65% of the residents or the voters here in Wisconsin have already cast their vote in terms of how many people cast the overall vote 4 years ago. So people are engaged and people seem to be very involved, and people are still sort of funneling themselves into this voting place at Lambeau Field tonight on their way home from work. Allison.
Kevin, let's talk a little bit more about turnout there. The mayor of Green Bay is saying the polls could be less congested because of the record number of absentee ballots. But I do see people lined up behind you. What's the case at your polling site? What has it been like there today, tonight?
Well, essentially, this place has never been used before for polling, for voting. And the reason it is being used is because of COVID. Unfortunately for Wisconsinites, their state at this point in time is a COVID hotspot. They set another all-time record today, as a matter of fact, for new cases of COVID, and lost more than 50 lives. That is one of the reasons why it was chosen, it was decided to use this tailgate facility, which is indoors, because obviously Green Bay is famous for its winter weather, so this is indoors. Large parking facilities. People can come here from wherever. A number of precincts are voting here, and that's the reason why this is being used. Having said
so we're using one central location to do voting for multiple districts or precincts.
The numbers voting last time have already voted with mail-in and absentee balloting. So a lot of people.
We missed our exit to Periardi. Lotte.
And they're coming out here tonight to make their money.
Okay, yeah.
Well, Kevin, I think the biggest shock in Wisconsin tonight is that you said it's 60 degrees there in November. I can't believe it. That's amazing. Send that weather east. I think we're getting it this weekend, and we will take it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Allison.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall.
Oh, nice. I like ads. How about you?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Washington feels more chaotic than ever. It's my job to ask the tough questions, left and right, and help you make sense of it all.
Yes. Yes.
You ready to go to work? I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore.
She's a prosecutor that did a bunch of sketchy things. You know, just saying.
Kamala, next in line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
Should have suspected something when I didn't see it.
What would you want to tell him right now?
On the ground.
The winds fanning these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most
really
comprehensive
unarmed
police reform
knife
bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
Voters turning out across South Carolina today where there is a high-stakes Senate contest on the ballot. Incumbent Republican Senator Lindsey Graham up against Democratic challenger Jamie Harrison. That race could help Democrats take control of the Senate.
Goodness.
NBC News correspondent Leanne Caldwell is outside a polling place in Columbia, South Carolina.
We've spent the day at a couple polling places in Columbia in a predominantly Democratic part of this state, and
predominantly Democratic part, yes.
Conditions at these polling places, and we're told because there are so many Democrats who voted early, and that's why they're saying that places that usually have long lines on Election Day are not seeing those long lines. So Democrats are confident heading into Election Day that they're well positioned. But,
including the Democrats that voted for Trump,
are most likely to vote on Election Day, and we're still waiting for those numbers to come in. We caught up with Democratic candidate Jamie Harrison early in the day at one of those polling places, and he sounded confident. He said Senator Lindsey Graham needs to be concerned. And the reason he feels that way is because a third.
Actually, I think every establishment politician needs to be concerned.
South Carolina, and that is a big number considering they're only 27% of the population. Now, Senator Graham has been running a campaign to the right, tying himself to the president as much as possible. He's been relying on the fact that he was able to push through Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. He flat out told us that that has helped him tremendously in his re-election. So, you know, both sides are
How long has he been in? I think it's been a while. I think it's time.
Polling places are going to close within the hour, and we could start to see results soon after that. Both sides are hoping that the result is called tonight, but there is some indication that it might take until tomorrow, especially if this race is extremely close.
Need that 2-vote difference in order to decide which district precinct is voting which way.
It's also the state with the most confirmed coronavirus cases in the country right now, over 960,000. In El Paso, new curfews and shutdowns are in effect. Field hospitals are now open with local hospitals at capacity. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky is joining us now from El Paso. Morgan, according to NBC News' exit poll of voters, 51% nationwide say the COVID containment efforts are going badly, 35% very badly. How are voters in El Paso being assured they are safe to vote given the serious COVID situation there?
Yeah, Allison, good evening. El Paso certainly finds itself at an interesting crossroads here with the
just keep tapping lightly and it'll just go ever so lightly.
As of late last week by the county judge, which acts as sort of a city manager here in Texas. As far as those safeties that are being put into place for people who go to the polls, we know that if you show up here to vote at one of these polling locations here in El Paso, you'll get a bag with a sanitation wipe in it, a finger covering, and a Q-tip there in order to make sure you don't have any extra contact.
They need to put finger cots in each equipment bag. Here's your voting bag. Go vote. Don't sneeze or spit on the screen, please. Thank you.
Make sure they go to the polls. As it stands right now, about 1,000 people are hospitalized in and around El Paso as a result of COVID-19. As you mentioned, those hospitals, they are at capacity. That includes ICU beds. Patients are now being flown to neighboring cities here, and the convention center here in El Paso has been turned into a temporary hospital, able to house anywhere from 50 to 70 patients. All that said,
nice.
The county judge here who issued that shutdown tells me that that is going to be just a drop in the bucket as to what this.
Did they wash their hands? Did they treat it like the flu? Oh wait, no. That's right.
Morgan, voter turnout in Texas has been massive. What are voters there telling you? What is driving Texans to the polls right now?
no matter where you look in this state, Allison, we're seeing records being broken. Early voting in particular, more people voting in the early voting than in the entire 2016 election for this state. In El Paso, those records also ring true. This will have been the most heavily voted election in El Paso County's history. What's interesting to note here is that we saw those early voting numbers surge all across the state. Right now, the numbers are projected to have 40,000 votes cast or slightly above that here on actual election day. That will still be a record number in and of itself, but the chair of the Democratic Party here in El Paso County tells me that they really needed their goal to hit a higher number, anywhere from 75,000 votes cast for them to feel like they actually had a chance of turning Texas blue. We still have a couple hours left in the
We've still got a couple hours left to see what counters can come up with.
So this is going to be the last county polls to close here, and that's why we're seeing volunteers, former Congressman Beto O'Rourke working at a phone bank, trying to make sure that they can drive the vote out here on that side of things. This is a primarily Democratic county, at least in recent history. And so that said, they're still trying to do whatever they can to drive that vote out here in Texas, being that reliable.
Trying to drive it one way, just saying.
It has been since 1976.
Yeah, and Morgan, as you said, still some hours for voters to get out there. You mentioned what you heard from the Democratic National Committee. How about what you're hearing from the campaigns there? Trump campaign, the Biden campaign, about their hopes for Texas?
It's going to be very tight, and we knew that going in. The polls had both sides neck and neck. I've spoken to those on both sides. They say that Harris County, of course, had that huge surge in numbers there, but they're really pointing to those votes coming from rural communities. It'll take a little bit longer for those to come in, but Republicans are confident that, at least as of right now, they think they can still hold on to Texas. Allison?
Grr, Texas.
Thanks so much. 80 American and international scholars on authoritarianism have issued an open letter warning the future of American democracy is at stake. And for the first time, the Carter Center, founded by former President Jimmy Carter, has observed 111 elections in 40 countries. Now the center's unofficially monitoring the U.S. election. NBC News foreign correspondent Richard Engel looks at the global focus on the outcome of this election.
Allison, around the world, people and governments are watching this process immensely closely because it is consequential, because it matters for the future of alliances with the United States, because it matters potentially for the future of democracy around the world. And that's not an overstatement, but it is a big one. For the first time ever, international election observers are now training their attention to the United States.
Yeah, they are.
Election observers you normally
the
see
weirdest,
in
oddest
African
thing.
countries or Caribbean countries where democracy is fragile, is new, and is often challenged by authoritarian leaders. And one of those groups that is monitoring the election unofficially is the Carter Center, set up by former President Jimmy Carter, which has monitored elections all over the world. And now they are focusing on the United States. I spoke to the head of the Carter Center, and I asked him, why now? Why are you set up to look at democracy around the world where it is threatened, focusing on the U.S.?
I think we see a lot of issues in the United States. Extreme polarization among the political parties, real barriers to engage in the political process. We've seen the public discourse in many ways deteriorate. Threats of violence, perhaps. A lot of those issues are the things we see in other countries. And we just have to make sure, the United States, that we are paying attention, that we are maintaining our faith in our institutions.
This is the first time you are weighing in on an American election.
This is the first time we've ever weighed in on an American election as the Carter Center, because this moment is one that presents so many issues that we have seen in decades of election observation.
2020's been quite the year, my friend.
For both sides in a nonpartisan way about what's important in an election.
Define nonpartisan.
But there are not just concerns about the modalities of the U.S. election. There's real concern about the outcome. That if President Trump is elected for another 4-year term, alliances as we know them might not survive.
What?
NATO which has been the backbone for Western security since it was founded after World War II.
NATO, the thing that the U.S. has been footing the bill on for quite a while.
In office, he has been a fierce critic of NATO. Then you have America's adversaries, Russia and China. Right now, we are living in a world where the United States is the lone remaining superpower, something that China absolutely wants to challenge. And there are many Chinese officials who've been saying that even though President Trump has been tough on China with tariffs and lots of verbal attacks, that the division...
Lester Holt picks up our special election coverage right here on NBC News Now.
Boom, let's go.
Seeing our first race results of the night. Georgia.
Too early to call.
Right now, too early to call. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NBC News Election Headquarters. Live coverage of Election Night 2020. It is finally here.
Yeah, polls are already closing around the country. Here's what we're going to be watching tonight. First, it's the fight between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, of course, for those crucial battleground states that will decide this election, including
Kanye West. Kanye West.
will determine that question, and we're watching them all.
So polls have just closed in 6 states with 60 electoral votes. Let's get right to it. And you see right now, Georgia is too early to call.
Let's go to South Carolina. There's a big Senate race as well as the presidential. Too early to call. We're waiting for vote there. In Indiana, we can make this call, and it's an expected one. The president will easily carry Indiana, the home state of Vice President Mike
Bada bing, bada boom.
Virginia. It is too early to call. However, our projection is that it is a Biden lead at this hour.
All right, let's take a look at Kentucky. And Kentucky right now, too early to call. But you see the first numbers we're getting of the night. Vermont is too early to call. And let's look at how all this takes us on that road to 270 right now. And you can see Donald Trump with 11 electoral votes to Biden 0.
Well, it could be a long night, and this is going to be an election.
Oh, I hope it's a long night, don't you?
We have Chuck Todd here with us, and one thing that's different is the enormous amount of mail-in voting. 100 million people have already voted before today, so we wanted to just break down. When you see expected vote in the top right-hand corner of our graphics, that includes mail-in voting. It's not just day of voting, but includes mail-in voting as well.
Yeah, we're not looking at just precincts. That's the term you're not going to hear a lot of tonight. It's this expected vote, which is an educated estimate. It may change a bit here.
Well, you can judge it by precinct too, but it's going to be a bit differently.
I'm just going to show you real quick how you'll be able to follow it, and we'll show you real fast here and take a look at one of our states right now. Here, hopefully we are starting to get here. We should be able to see it here in Indiana, and not yet here. Well, we will work on that. The data is coming in here any second now. We'll go here, and let's see if it's working. There we go. Right here, we're going to be able to tell you, and you'll see this on all of our state results all night long. We'll tell you, in Indiana, we knew there were 207,000 early and absentee votes. And
oh boy.
You'll see this as the night, and we'll see some states you're going to see the early and absentee take up most of that column. Then your election day vote's going to come in at yellow there, and you'll start to see the yellow. A place like Pennsylvania, we expect more yellow than we will orange. And then this gray spot. Look, I want to tell people something. This number, it's an estimate. It is an estimate. It could change throughout the night. We may learn more. Oh, there's more ballots than we thought, or there's a fewer ballots than we thought. But this is the expected vote.
Yeah, kill you.
Estimate it before the election. So this could move by anywhere from a percentage point or two. But this is what we'll be letting you know about all night long.
The main thing is we are counting early vote, and we are estimating day of vote when we talk about how much of the vote is in it at the same time.
Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, I need to take
How much did the early vote impact this election as well?
a second.
Here. What are some of your early thoughts?
Let my mouth shut. Fine, be that way.
Place where suburban women did not turn out for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and what we might see this year, and it just depends on whether that gender gap shows that we've seen all along in the early polling between Joe Biden and Donald Trump for weeks now. Women are disproportionately affected by COVID, and the
Let
suburban
me
white women
slap that over there.
going for Joe Biden over Donald Trump in the polling straight through. If that holds, that could be key in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and other states. It could offset Donald Trump's big advantage with white, non-college educated men. And these women are staying at home, many working from home, taking care of children. They're disproportionately affected by COVID, and they're telling us, at least in the polling up until now, that they don't like the way the president has handled the pandemic. And they don't like some of his language.
All right, Andrew, we have got a tremendous team of correspondents spread out across the country, analyzing results in the key states. We'll check in with them through the night. But first, a look at where the candidates are tracking tonight's outcome.
So let's start with Hallie Jackson. She's at the White House. That's where the president is watching results come in. Kristen Welker is at Joe Biden's headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware. But Hallie, we'll start with you. What's the mood inside Trump team?
The president is here at the White House watching these returns come in, mixing yet again his official position here with campaign activities. An event set to be held in the East Room tonight. Several hundred supporters of the president will be here watching this all unfold. We are told by sources close to the president that he is sounding tired. You can hear it in his voice a little bit. It's raspy from all those rallies he's been holding the last couple of days. But in conversations, he is indicating that he is feeling good, feeling optimistic about his chances. So let's talk about what we're hearing from allies and aides close to the president in this campaign. They're specifically looking at some key battlegrounds, and they're feeling encouraged about states like Florida, Ohio, Iowa, some of the states that had been on that battleground map, Arizona. They're feeling optimistic about Georgia and North Carolina. There's a big question mark on Michigan. I think that many acknowledge that that is, privately, they'll say, an uphill climb for President Trump at this point. Critical when it comes to the electoral vote there. And then there's a really interesting state, Pennsylvania. I asked one person close to the president which 3 states they're going to be looking at tonight, right now. And they said, well, Pennsylvania, and then Pennsylvania, and after that, Pennsylvania again. This is a state where the president has campaigned more than any other throughout this 2020 cycle.
Get the finger back up.
Could potentially be a tipping point. The president has acknowledged that very publicly, but here the race, the polls show that it is extremely close. So a lot of
I don't know if I need to make that bigger.
As far as the mood more broadly, listen, I covered this campaign back in 2016 when it was a come-from-behind win. I vividly remember election night with all of you that night as well. And there is the memory of that is still lingering, the sense that this campaign has been an underdog before and could be an underdog and pull out another victory again. But there are also those close to the president who are looking at the way suburban women, for example, seniors have moved away from the president, largely because of questions about his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. And that, I think...
That's in the polls. What polls?
All right, Hallie leading us off at the White House.
Tell me more about these polls.
Headquarters in Delaware. Kristen, what's the mood there? What's the story there?
Florida's still leading, you know, still doing pretty well so far.
Delaware after striking a confident note throughout the day and after making some final campaign stops. He was in Pennsylvania, Scranton, where of course he was born, visiting his childhood home. He was also in Philadelphia, urging them to get out.
Mountain Dew.
Why so much focus on Pennsylvania? Biden has been there several times over the past several days. Well, because the Biden campaign says, look, they don't need Pennsylvania in order to win the White House. However, it is very difficult for President Trump to win re-election if he doesn't carry Pennsylvania. Of course, that's a state that he won back in
The Biden campaign gave up on Pennsylvania.
this intense focus on the Keystone State. They like what they're hearing so far in terms of the turnout rate, so they are watching that very closely. But they're also, of course, watching the Midwest, that blue wall that did not hold for Hillary Clinton. Biden has been there multiple times. Michigan, Wisconsin, urging people to get out and vote for him. He says to vote for change.
Oh, that's my next kill you packet.
Say they don't need to win states like Florida and North Carolina, but those states
That'll be your mistake.
with a victory. So there is measured optimism here inside the Biden camp. Now, some Democrats privately expressing concerns that Biden hasn't had the same aggressive campaign schedule that we have seen from President Trump. I asked a campaign official about that today. This official said, look, we feel confident. We feel as though we left it all out on the field. So now they are watching and waiting with the rest of the country.
All right, Kristen Welker, thank you.
As mentioned, there is a big battle over the United States Senate. Democrats need to pick up a net of 3 seats if they win the White House or 4 if they don't. And here are some results. Too early to call, but this is a hot race in South Carolina between Lindsey Graham, the longtime senator, and Jamie Harrison. In Georgia, we got a couple of races tonight. This one also too early to call. John Ossoff, the Democrat, David Perdue, the Republican. Now we've got what they call a jungle primary. That's the technical term. Everybody's in it, and not just these three. It's too early to call, but both
How'd they get that going?
Go to a runoff if no candidate gets to 50% in January.
All right, let's look at the Kentucky Senate race, 14% in. Too early to call. Mitch McConnell up against Amy McGrath. In Virginia, too early to call. And let's see where that leaves the Senate right now. The drum roll with this. Democrats with 35 seats, 30 for the Republicans.
Yeah, we haven't called any yet, but we've got Casey Hunt right here in New York with us. She's watching the Senate very closely. Casey, what are the big races you got your eye on tonight?
Well, you guys just walked through some of them, and I would describe it broadly, Savannah, as the Sun Belt suburbs. So what does that mean? We've talked a little bit already about Georgia, the suburbs of Atlanta, the place that really could not just be a demographic shift that we've been talking about for
I need to go see Tamo.
but be a place that could really turn against President Trump. And that not only has huge implications for the presidential ticket, it also
College campuses could really turn against Trump due to the fact that they didn't vote for him before, but by a high ignorant voting base.
That's going to be a sign that Democrats are in for a very good night. Obviously, far too early to call that at this point, but that's what I'm going to be watching all through the night. That logic also applies to these other Sun Belt suburbs. Phoenix, Arizona is another one. Martha McSally running against Mark Kelly, who's a Democratic challenger. Many Republicans think that that race may already be gone for Martha McSally, the incumbent, and if that's the case, it's all about the suburbs of Phoenix. And then big surprise, of course, tonight, Savannah, potentially in Texas. We don't always think about Texas as being driven by suburbs, but it really is. Houston, Dallas area places. There is a Senate race in Texas. John Cornyn, the Republican senator, is an incumbent there. We have expected him to do better than President Trump in Texas. It's one of actually only a few places where you have a
Show us Utah, please.
of the president. So some people, some Republicans I'm talking to who are pessimistic about Texas suggest that John Cornyn could hold on, but perhaps President Trump could have a
Wow, we've got a slideshow going here.
with any certainty about how these are going so far, but those are the places that I think are really going to determine control of the Senate through the night.
Well, everything's bigger in Texas, Casey, including the turnout that we've seen so far of the roughly 10 million votes, which is about
Nice joke there.
All right, Chuck, a lot of folks watching tonight are going to get an answer tonight. What's the road? How do we get there?
Well, by the way, watch the Texas turnout. They had 17 million.
What if Kanye West?
They need to actually pull that off, so watch that tonight. Well, I'm going to take you through our sort of how to watch tonight a little bit and this idea, what are we going to know and what aren't we going to know. Look, at the end of the day, we know that these 3 states are not going to be reporting tonight, at least there's a chance Wisconsin could get a bunch of vote in before the Today Show, which is always my measurement here, before the Today Show. Right. Michigan and Pennsylvania, very unlikely. So let's, how do you want to watch the night? Well, we know we're going to see these early states here first, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And let me just show you why they're so important to President Trump and why he really probably has to sweep the Sun Belt. Because if you go back and give the Clinton states here to Biden in our battleground,
I don't know. Does he have to work very hard in the Clinton states? They're very advanced screen player thinger.
And any of them, if he doesn't win these Sun Belt states, then right now we're going to put him in red like he did the last time. But if he just loses, as you can see here, if he just loses, if he doesn't get Florida, he doesn't get close, you've got Arizona, which would be a problem if that gets him there. If Wisconsin and Michigan end up blue, and they lean blue right now, you start to see where just one of these Sun Belt states starts to do it, and if he gets a second, then suddenly Pennsylvania no longer is here. But for the president,
trying to figure out
he's able to
what he's trying to say.
Game's on, then look what we're staring at. We are staring at a one-state contest. We're all going to be wondering.
I think Arizona would like, you know, security.
Georgia, Florida, and Arizona. One flip by Biden there, and suddenly the president's path gets really complicated. Two flips, and we have an idea for the next president's path.
Chuck, we'll be watching. Those Sun Belt states are better at voting early and counting early, so we'll see. It might decide how long this night really is. We're going to take a quick break here. Much more ahead.
If they get started counting early on those absentee ones, then yeah. They can be done quicker. The night can be over sooner.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News
Breaking news. So inaccurate because we don't have any research behind it.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you.
Wow.
Whether you're back to school
What do you guys think? We're excited?
or back to work, we're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been the American way of death across
Wow,
centuries.
you know,
After seeing the most comprehensive
why
police
don't you
reform
watch
bill
TV
ever
anymore?
introduced
Because
in
have you
Congress, I've
ever
begun
sat
to
and
wonder
stared at their
if
ads for
now
the
is
longest
the
while?
time. If now is the time the protesters
Why not the
finally
mainstream news? Because rather than going straight on through, they add in their little blurps of stuff in between.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala
This is their
Harris?
commercial
Join me,
break,
Joy Reid, as I
and
explore her
they
life's journey from Oakland
have
to
to do their own
Washington
little
on my
commercial
six-part
things in
podcast,
between
Kamala, Next in
in
Line.
order
New
to make
episodes
it
every
work
Monday.
for the TV
Subscribe for free
viewers.
wherever you get your podcasts.
A real close-knit group of nurses pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus.
You're not just any patient. You're their friend.
These votes saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
Introducing the MSNBC
It's like some people are stupid or something.
Perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better
Experts.
understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out
Experts
the
have failed us for a
MSNBC
bit,
Daily
you know.
today at msnbc.com.
The experts, we don't practice in our field very much anymore, but we know what we're talking about.
It's news made for your streaming world.
Blah, 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 blah.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
from every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President
Oh boy, we got a cloud overhead.
On the ground,
The winds fanning these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
and in depth.
we now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC
We have 2 vaccine trials. Should people be concerned? Well, I thought they would be happy. If it were anyone else, they'd be happy, I think.
2020 on NBC News.
We've got some numbers coming in. Let's look at the Virginia presidential race. And right now, that's too early, but we can report that Biden...
69, nice.
Let's look at Georgia. It's a swing state this year. We don't usually say that. It's too early to call, but we're starting to get a few votes in. Let's go to South Carolina. Too early to call there as well.
In Vermont, we can project that Joe Biden is the winner in Vermont.
Close that door.
Yeah, but not a surprise, but yes. Okay, let's go to Rahima Ellis.
We can project.
Where, of course, the Democrats are really hoping on
That's all they ever do, is project.
break out what happens in other more rural parts of the state. Rahima, what are you seeing?
what we're seeing here leading up to this, they got a lot of mail-in ballots that were brought into the state. As you know, so many people went out and
how'd they get so many mail-in ballots brought in?
to cast their ballots early. When we talked to people, we found out that one of the things that they were really concerned about here was COVID-19, which is one of the reasons why so many people mailed in their ballots. For the first time, they had over 400,000 mail-in ballots requested for this election, a presidential election, and they received more than 330,000 before
36% in. Ooh.
So that's why I think that they didn't have very long lines here, but the other counts of the
2%.
they did have long lines. One of the things that's really important here is that they tell us that it is not likely they're going to be able to call this race for either candidate tonight because the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania says they're going to count all of those mail-in ballots. And if they are properly postmarked tonight,
now they're going to count them all.
Savannah?
All right, Rahema, thank you. And Chuck, you've been looking at those exit polls. What do you see in your tea leaves over there?
Well, we want to show you, look, a lot of the
tea leaves, that's all you're using, I guess, huh?
Poll numbers among white voters here. And this is a key. When Democrats do well in southern states, they have to essentially perform better with some white voters. They have to get to the 30% mark. Here's what's interesting in Georgia. The last time, and you can see it here, the last time a Democrat carried Georgia was in 1992. It was Bill Clinton, which is also the last time that any Democrat got more than 30% of the white vote. Right now, Joe Biden is sitting at exactly 30% of the white vote.
Oh boy.
2004, 2016. So the last time it's been there.
How many votes have been counted?
That 30% mark. That is usually what Democrats need in Georgia, assuming they have the African-American turnout they need. And right now in Georgia, it looks like it. That is why right now Democrats are so bullish on Georgia.
And real quickly, until we have vote, we're talking exit polls. Those exit polls are including day of vote and also surveys conducted of early voters.
It is. And look, and we've seen this before. The exit can, overstate by a point or two. We were able to, as we see real,
just by a point or two,
match it, we're able to reweight it. There's always a chance that it's at 2 points, but the point is this: winning Democrats in states like Georgia get 30% of the white vote. Exit is saying that. Let's see what the real returns say.
All right, Chuck, thank you. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more NBC News Decision 2020 election night coverage in just a moment.
Tamo, where's your bike at?
By mail,
early in person,
or on election day.
Each state has its own set of rules for the way we cast our ballots.
Yes, it's a little confusing. That's why we have to figure it out now.
Take 15 minutes and plan.
Just barely? You're a little late.
In some places, the polls are already open. Go!
Make sure your voice is heard.
Plan your vote. Plan your vote.
Plan your vote.
Washington feels more chaotic than ever. It's my job to ask the tough questions, left and right.
My job. Tough questions. Blah, blah, blah.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast.
Her journey.
New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit
Dude, I don't need your solar help.
The story. The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020
The final stretch. Blah.
So you're talking to Joe Biden and President Trump. What would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The wind standing these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Truth be told.
Good morning, welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed
Tamo.
black men has been an American way of
How could
death
you not be open?
across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell.
Straight from the heart.
MSNBC.
Just get it right straight from his heart.
Download the NBC News app.
I'm just gonna skip Sunday for a little bit. You know.
Welcome back. At bottom of the hour, we're going to get a poll closing in North Carolina. That's a biggie.
Yeah, 7:30 Eastern is when we should be getting that poll closing for North Carolina. This is the state that the Democratic governor ran afoul, of course, of the president over the Republican National Convention and COVID.
Yeah, and it's a Senate battleground.
Up for grabs on the governor's seat.
Could tell the whole story tonight if we get a result.
And what we see very clearly from the exit polls, at least so far, is that there's a real split, a racial divide on what is the issue most important to the voters. For black voters, 48%
It's split by race. Remember that. That's the important part, the race.
say it is the economy. They're exactly reversed.
North Carolina, by the way, is one of those states. There's not a lot of swing areas. It is margins. You're gonna hear that a lot from me.
Explain that. That's Chuck speak. You got to run
That's right. This isn't a county that vacillates between red and blue. These counties are big blue counties or big red counties. Red. And
I don't get these things, these numbers sometimes.
Run that up in
They
these
don't
key
add
swing
up.
states. There's a lot more of that.
What's everyone else worried about?
Carolina, so these are what we call margin states. So it's all about how much do you run up the score for Democrats in Charlotte, how much in the rural areas for Trump.
And they count the votes pretty quickly.
It's a fairly quick process, but it is a tight race.
All right.
Yeah.
We will be right back with more coverage after this.
You go on too many breaks. I mean, really. Oh my goodness.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school
What do you guys think? We're excited?
or back to work, we're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After
It's an American way of life, apparently.
Ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
It's just the way we do it in America.
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New
Are you gonna
episodes
cover
every
all the
Monday.
spicy
Subscribe for
details?
free wherever you get your podcasts.
A real close-knit group of nurses who pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus.
You're not just any patient, you're their friend. These folks saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
It's like having friends
MSNBC Daily, featuring written
that
perspectives
help
by
you,
experts you
will
know and
change the
trust
way.
for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the
Damo.
MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
Rachel Maddow covers Jenga.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
Tamos and Union.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to
Hi, Timo.
President Trump, what would you want to tell him right now?
On the ground.
The wind-standing these
Oh, okay, he's open.
expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on
That tearing is just wonderful.
Nightly News with Lester Holt.
All the food, mostly.
We are coming up on the bottom of the hour. We're going to get some key poll closings in a couple of minutes, including the all-important state of North Carolina, of Ohio, and West Virginia. That's just moments away, but we've already gotten some polls closed tonight, Georgia being one of them. This is a battleground this year. It's too early to call at this hour.
And Kentucky, South Carolina also too early to call right now, the race for president.
But let's look at what's happening in the race for president in Virginia.
That's not a lot of money.
That's South Carolina. Here's Virginia.
I'll take this.
So we will continue to watch that. And let's talk about North Carolina. Chuck, I mean, this is going to be one of those states that might really tell the whole story tonight.
It is, and one of the big thing is going to be, I think, African-American turnout. You know, if 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton lost the race by about 3 points, 49-46, after rounding. And when
After rounding, yeah.
He just had a bigger share of African-American voters. So the real question is going to be...
He took more than his fair share.
African-American turnout that looks more like the Obama-Biden.
Here's the numbers just came in from North Carolina. This is what we have right now. Too early to call.
That is my kill you back.
Ohio.
Just getting all my stuff I need prepped up real quick so that I can have my kill you items ready.
So where does it shake out on that map? To 270 electoral votes. That's what's required to take the presidency, and we are still early in this night. Joe Biden getting 3 so far. Donald Trump with Indiana at 11.
Yeah, long road to 270, but certainly we've been watching Ohio. Joe Biden, late in the game, decided to put Ohio on his expanded map.
Joe Biden's been hiding, though. Biden.
Is going to be around Lake Erie. Those Lake counties, those are all used to be some Union Democrats. Donald Trump did really well, basically, from Toledo and one end all the way through. Sherrod Brown, when he won his re-election in 2018, got a bunch of those counties back. That's what we're going to be watching for tonight. Is Joe Biden looking like a Sherrod Brown Democrat, or is he going to look like a Hillary Clinton Democrat in Ohio?
And let me go to Casey Hunt on this, because Erie, Pennsylvania is one of those areas the president went to for a rally, but actually said, I believe, to the Erie voters, I didn't think I'd have to come here. I didn't think I'd have to push it so hard. But every vote in Pennsylvania is being fought for.
That's right, Savannah. In fact, he said, I didn't want to have to come here. I didn't want to have to, as you say, fight for it, which is not necessarily a traditional message from any political candidate to a group of people where you're standing there and you're asking for their votes.
It's not traditional to hide in your basement either when you're looking for votes.
His hometown of Scranton there, his boyhood home. And it has been a place where both candidates have visited over and over and over again. And to Chuck's point about that area along Lake Erie, you know, that also, I think, speaks to questions about whether Joe Biden can actually increase his support among white voters. Democrats have been losing support generally among white voters, and we've covered extensively all of those people, those blue-collar folks who maybe voted for Obama twice and then flipped and voted for Donald Trump. And could Joe Biden stem the bleeding there? And our exit polls are showing some early signs that it's possible that that's the case in places like Georgia as well. Now, that, of course, could also be suburban. And don't forget that the suburbs in states like Ohio and especially in Pennsylvania are also very important here. And that extends our conversation to suburban women. So those are still, some of the areas I think my sources are focusing on as I've been in touch with strategists throughout the early evening. If we're talking about Pennsylvania specifically, I would say Democrats are pretty optimistic that they're going to hit what they need to hit in terms of turnout and organization in Pennsylvania to get Joe Biden across the finish line.
That's right.
Of course, everyone's still very nervous and reluctant to say that out loud until we get more concrete numbers, Savannah.
And remember, the results in Pennsylvania in 2016 were a hair 40,000 votes made the difference there. So that's why every vote counts. Let's go to the Senate races.
Every vote.
North Carolina's polls just closed This is a hot race. This is an endangered incumbent. Tom, tell us the Republican. Too early to call this vote, but we'll be watching it. West Virginia, it's too early to call, but Shelley Moore Capito, who's the incumbent, is leading at this hour and has been leading in the polls throughout.
Let's show you where that leads us with the Senate right now. There is the breakdown. Remember, Democrats need perhaps 4, maybe 3 to gain control.
Well, I'm excited because Chuck's got a county breakdown map, which I know things are getting good now.
I do. Look, I want to just show you something here. This was the last time Democrats carried North Carolina. This is Barack Obama's winning map here. And I want to pay particularly attention.
This is how a black man won the state.
And some of these counties. You see this block of blue counties here. All right, let me take you to 2016. You can see some of those blue counties went away. So let me just show you what this means when we talk about a margin state, as I was talking
There was a third person on there. What's going on here?
This county, we don't have any vote here. But here's where I can show you about why turnout matters. So in 2016, Donald Trump carried Robeson County, all right? But if you look at here, when Barack Obama carried it, he carried it with 58 and 57% of the vote. This county is basically almost 50% African American. It is a turnout county. As you can see, when the African American vote doesn't turn out, that county goes red. When the African American vote turns out, that county goes blue.
Oh, why? Wait, no. This is in past things, though. Things are different this year. You're gonna project that, but when you alienate the base that you're going for,
Well, Lester, right now, a couple of minutes past the closing of polls, all those early votes are actually being tabulated. And sources that I've been speaking with say expect those to go strongly for Joe Biden. But that will give perhaps a skewed perspective of the night. Both elected officials, senior elected officials in both parties say they expect Biden to have big margins in the cities. But the president's strength, they believe, is in the more rural areas where they argue that they've been able to identify and turn out new voters favorable to President Trump, but that vote will probably come in later tonight. So one of the key questions will be watching what may be
who won?
for Biden. And can
That's the key question. Who won? Really?
The Trump campaign believes they've got to win Ohio. No Republicans won the White House without it. Democrats think it's within reach for Joe Biden, and they say look to the suburbs for where Joe
Oh, I forgot to get juice. Dang it. I have more kill you to fill up.
In this case, it's about new expectations. So it will take some patience tonight, but they expect to have votes coming in soon. But it's about watching the pace of the night, and can the president overtake what they expect to be that early Joe Biden lead. Both Biden and President Trump campaigned here not as much as some of
They count mail-in votes and find out that Trump wins.
to get to that piece that's needed for 270. 18 electoral votes are on the line here. Lester?
All right, Kelly, thank you.
Well, let's turn to Florida. I can't believe we haven't talked very much about Florida tonight.
I know. Well, let me show you what we got in Florida right now.
The new home state of the president himself.
Over 7 million votes. And Florida's one of those that does its early vote.
Florida's one of those that has a lot of Cubans in it, and Cubans don't like some of the things that some people are talking about, so it's kind of the Red Scare thing.
Nearly 12 million voters, so we shall see. So we think there's another, 3.5 to 4 million, maybe 4.5 million more votes to go. So anyway, just something to look there. So how are we watching Florida tonight? You don't win Florida the same way twice. All right, that is something that I think I want to remind people. But let me just start here with what we're all night tonight. I'll do these what I call Trump Dem counties, and what these were is these were counties that Trump carried in 16, but the major Democratic statewide candidate in 18 carried. Well, in the state of Florida, that was Duval, that was Seminole, and that was Pinellas. This was the governor's race there. Andrew Gillum, which was granted it's a race they lost, but these are 3 important counties. I can tell you this, the Biden folks think if they can win Pinellas and Duval and Seminole, they can make up for some ground there. So why don't we take a look and see what our numbers are. Here's Pinellas. This is the home of St. Petersburg. Right now, very narrow Biden. So you can see what we were looking at over the last 3 election cycles. This is the toy that I love the best. The fact I could do this so quickly here.
I like this forecasting. They can use a fancy touch screen.
Bellwether counties that there's left. Most things are margins, as I've been saying.
No.
Obama narrowly carried it by a bigger number. As
John McCain didn't bring much excitement, though. That's the thing.
Not much vote, but Biden a very narrow lead. All that tells me, by the way, all that tells me is
Biden has less excitement than I think Hillary does, too.
talk about Seminole. Well, Seminole right now, this is a county again that Donald Trump carried 4 years ago, and you can see here, this is a county that has been moving towards the Democrats very carefully. As you can see here, this Obama overperformed, and so McCain and Romney and Trump all carried it, but it's starting to shift a little bit. It's diversifying. Seminole's north of Orlando, happens to be on my mother list, and right now he's winning Seminole. That is a very good sign. But this is potentially.
That's a very good sign. So you're rooting for someone as a news organization.
This is a terrible margin for him, 54%. Not good.
It's the Latino vote in South Florida.
And it's a different type of Latino vote. It's the Cuban American vote. It's the Venezuelan American vote. But I mean, you can see here.
Yeah, Cubans and Venezuelans. Imagine that.
Was 58, and he did carry the state. Biden is not matching that. Obama got 62 out of it. Look, what Hillary Clinton did in Miami-Dade 4 years ago is why, I don't know if you recall 4 years ago, I'm going, oh my goodness, look at these numbers she's hitting here. She's going to win Florida, and then of course Donald
Oh yeah, there's no rally. I just got to worry about the one green car.
close to this. This could be the reason he doesn't win Florida, because Donald Trump has made it. If there is one constituency group in the state of Florida that he is focused on, it is Cuban Americans, Venezuelan Americans. They did all sorts of policy rollouts there. This is one of the few times where they used the power of the presidency in an official capacity, essentially, to try to carry the state of Florida, overperform in Miami-Dade. So we shall see. Again, nobody wins Florida the same way twice. So there is not to say Biden can't do this if he overperforms in some of these northern counties, which we're seeing him do. But this
You say that, but 2020's been a weird year.
Kristen Welker has spent a fair amount of time in Florida recently. Kristen, Joe Biden making an appeal and appear to be doing well among older voters.
Older voters. Are these the dead voters you're talking about? I mean, almost dead voters.
Miami-Dade. I have been talking to Democrats about that area for the past week or so. They have been concerned about the turnout in Miami-Dade, and that's why you saw former President Obama campaigning there over the weekend, urging voters not to be complacent, to get out and vote. Now, I spent some time...
Yeah, everybody else has been encouraging that too for some reason. Twitch and everywhere else. I've never seen that before.
Biden voter who I interviewed a Trump voter. So you really feel on the ground there that this is the battleground states. What we also saw in Florida, Lester, was really a tale of two
Let's
campaigns.
see.
You had President Trump and Joe Biden on Thursday holding these competing rallies in Tampa, which is a swing district, and you had President Trump with this massive crowd, very little social distancing, very few masks. On the other hand, Joe Biden in the same area with a drive-in socially distant rally. Very different messaging on COVID-19. Biden thinking that could be the crux and the key to this campaign, Lester.
Kristen, thanks very much.
Let's turn to Casey Hutch. She's got some reporting on Duval County, which is, I guess, the northeastern part of the state. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Chuck was just talking about this. It's the area around Jacksonville, and I was actually just exchanging notes with a couple of sources about what's going on there.
Idaho's in a few hours. Okay.
Seem to be stronger for Biden than maybe anticipated, but I'm also told by others who've been tracking this data very closely that they're not sure that Biden's going to pull it out. So we just want to be, I think, I would urge a little bit of caution in terms of looking at the returns there. The other thing I would highlight, though, Savannah, is Broward County. For all of the trouble that Chuck correctly highlighted that President Trump former Vice President Joe Biden is potentially having in Miami-Dade County, Democrats are really paying attention to Broward, which is just one county to the north, where we could see those suburban women who have been so frustrated with President Trump really play a pretty significant role. There's also, of course, questions, as you were talking about with Kristen, about seniors in that spot. So if the turnout there is very, very strong...
No, nothing in the mailbox.
We could see Broward County is one place where they're hoping they can counterbalance what's going on in Miami-Dade just to the south.
Andrea, you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, just to weigh in on Miami-Dade, the real problem, I think, early on is labeling Joe Biden as a socialist. And the fact that the Biden campaign was very slow to respond to that, also didn't canvass. Because of COVID, they were not canvassing. The Trump campaign
Doesn't matter what you label them as. It matters what they've advocated for. We've got a nice voting record, believe it or not, from when he was.
In fact, it may not be enough to overcome that advantage. And also the policies that Chuck was referring to, policies on Cuba and Venezuela. Coming out of the State Department, they have been just pouring the stuff out to attract those Latin American people who are tied to their home countries.
And the socialism label, you're saying, kind of stuck to Joe Biden harder there with that particular community of voters?
And he's going to have to overcome that for the rest of Florida, by the rest of Florida.
Chuck, is this a good point?
There as well.
Is this a good point to take a look at where the vote we're looking at is coming from? Because we were warned going into this that numbers may not appear, the image may be different than what is actually happening.
For instance, in Florida, we're seeing everything is going to get thrown in. And I've got Duval up now, which is Jacksonville. That's up here in the northeast corner. And this is, look, Duval is a swing county. It's been a swing county that...
Yeah, I'll leave that crate there.
Almost most of the time. And lately, Andrew Gillum carried it. And you're...
This is a little bit of a don't buffer on me like that.
Amazing here. I'm just struck by the turnout. Look, turnout was almost identical, if you will, from 12 to 16. The Romney number, the Trump number out of Duval is coming here. But, I mean, look at now. We're sitting already. Trump has more vote than any Republican's ever gotten of Duval, and he may lose it. And Biden's got a whopping 250,000. But one of the things that I've noticed that could help out Joe Biden if he's struggling in Miami-Dade is that, just very carefully, you can see he's improving on Clinton's margins by 1 or 2 points in important counties along here. I'm going down the West Coast here because this is some Republicans, a lot of college-educated Republicans down here, snowbirds. And I'm just going to throw these counties. Watch the Clinton number, watch the Biden percentage, just so you can see here. He's just slightly improving on her by 2 points almost across the board. That's a 3.5 point.
Okay, that's the kill you stuff.
Here, Lee County, this is Fort Myers. As you can see, he's improved by 3.5 points. This is how Joe Biden can overcome that poor turnout, if you will, for him in Miami-Dade. If he's shaving 2 or 3 points in every
rolling,
then suddenly you're in a situation where that's how you, again, it's my point. Nobody wins Florida the same way twice.
No one wins Florida.
Together the same way twice. We'll get to your mom's house in the next break, but we're going to take a little moment here. A look ahead to the night.
That wasn't very nice.
It's coming up, including Florida and Pennsylvania, just moments away. Stay with us right here on election night.
For breaking news in our changing world, download
blah,
the NBC
blah,
News
blah,
app.
blah, blah.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school
What do you guys think? We're excited?
or back to work, we're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell.
Last word, because I can't get the first word ever.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line.
Oh.
But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
A real close-knit group of nurses who pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus.
You're not just any patient. You're their friend. These folks saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust for a
I don't know if I trust him though.
better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
You're watching.
Oh, sweet.
News now. We've got some breaking news.
Okay, so I'm gonna take 2 seconds.
Are people there?
Okay. It sounds like that needs to take a second. Okay. I'll be right back. Okay, let me see if I can find a better, less convoluted, maybe. Could go with that one, but that wouldn't be any fun, would it? We have a totally somewhat biased Yahoo Finance covering the election. Come on. Let's go with that one. Nope. Take this one. Hey Jump, how's it going? Is Yahoo not showing anything? That's boring. I want someone. Show me that election news, come on. $19.80. I'm doing pretty well. I mean, once I get the desktop back up on view, yeah. Let's see, who is... You just excited to watch the world burn then too?
Results coming out. Omar, thank you for that. Now, we are just a few moments away, as Omar said, from polls closing, not just in states like I just mentioned.
Okay. No, not that one. I need that one.
Michigan. We are going to keep updating as often as we can. As soon as these numbers come in, we're using the Associated Press. The latest results on how things are unfolding.
Yeah, I did switch. Okay. I sometimes forget whether I switched or not.
Streaming, so you can tell your friends and family who are in the U.S. but Canadian and want to watch a Canadian broadcast that they can tune in
Let's
tonight.
take the
There's
thumb
just
down.
So much more ahead because as things the avalanche begins, so to speak, things will get a lot more intense. We'll have a much better sense of how the night is leaning.
I think some people's reactions, you'll see a few reactions that are going to be over the top, honestly.
In some of these pivotal states. So stick with us.
Yeah, we've already seen like over the top reactions to things already, so.
Marilla, certainly coronavirus as well as this election are top stories again today, as they've been for so many days now. Marilla.
That's right. Top stories there, top stories here as well. Lisa, let's get you caught up on what else is making...
No, it's just the way the game is. So, the player model has like a couple things that are rigged up. Kind of weird. So, like, the hand, I think, is like just a standalone model. I don't think there's actually a player model. But yeah, the hand does a bunch of things, so like the pushings looks kind of weird on the hands. But yeah, other than that, it's usually kind of fine. So if I take so like the hand looks fine when you're drinking. But yeah, there's just a couple things like the hitchhiking thumb that just look kind of weird.
More targeted restrictions to be put in place. Alberta's chief medical officer of health reporting a sharp rise in COVID-19 cases in that province.
Thought we were watching election stuff, not Coof stuff. Come on.
New cases per day.
Alberta also adding 15 new deaths, including 10.
I might find another feed.
There are 167 COVID-19 patients in hospital there. Nearly 30 of them are in the ICU. Investigators in Vienna revealing more about a man who carried out a terror attack. A 20-year-old man opened fire with an automatic rifle. He was later killed by police. Authorities say he had a previous terror conviction for trying to join ISIS in Syria. That country now observing a 3-day mourning period. Officials are not sure whether or not he acted alone.
Let me.
On any of those stories, head to ctvnews.ca and stay with us. CTV News Chief Anchor, Senior Editor Lisa LaFlamme, back in a moment with the election special, the American election 2020.
Back with the election special.
Canadians are committed to Tim's Coffee, no matter
Why do they do all this? Give me the straight. Okay. Am I less likely to get one on? Gosh. Okay, I need to take care of that thirst. I don't know why it got so high.
Works with the Cuban electorate, to be quite honest with you. So we might laugh at it. I think that most young people definitely laugh at that kind of fear-mongering. But, you know,
yay, fear-mongering.
South Florida are shook. Like, every time they hear the word socialist, like, oh, no, we gotta do something. We gotta vote against that person. So, of course, Biden is not a socialist. Biden is very much, I mean, I hesitate to even say moderate Democrat. I mean, he's conservative on a lot of issues. So it's just, it doesn't matter, no rhyme or reason. There's no proof that he's socialist, but all Trump had to do was like use that messaging over and over again. And he did gain support among Cuban voters in South Florida.
With 81% reporting, Biden hanging on to a 0.1% lead. And we'll give you updates on that. I'm going to give you one
Show
more
us the
comment here.
updates.
Jennifer Smith on Super Chat, also very generous. Thank you, Jennifer. Love you for it. Saying, sitting at home alone with my cats watching this go down, and you guys are helping me not to take a Xanax every 30 minutes. Thank you. Love TYT.
What are we mongering on? I can't remember.
Xanax. Everything's going to be okay. When we come back, a lot more results and another great progressive, David Day. We'll be right back.
They had things, levels of voting that if you ever agreed to it, you'd never have a Republican elected in this country again.
I just want something to argue with more than anything, I think.
Where are the Democrats? I would be on every cable news channel screaming and yelling and talking about what the Republicans are doing right now.
How do you expect us to get excited to show up to the polls for these loser Democrats? How come we have nothing but cowards?
Yes, these are very HD graphics. If you, I have the lowest, well, I mean, the best graphics settings for this one. I swear.
Through the visa lottery.
Now they are against legal immigrants.
Ending chain migration.
Blah, blah. Okay, here we go. We've passed through.
Being racist. This guy's an absolute monumental disgrace to all of
He's
us as
a
Americans.
disgrace.
Start treating us with some respect.
That is what I was warning about for literally years on this program. This is what they promised they would do if they got into power, and what do you know? They did it.
I've now shown dozens of videos on the Young
There we go. I've peed in the corner.
Turks of cops handcuffing people who are bleeding to death. His life means nothing. We have been trained to be cowards, so we're going to handcuff that guy bleeding to death.
When it comes to these protesters who are justifiably
How do I run up my fatigue?
getting gunned down,
Dude.
and murdered by police force.
We are a physical representation.
Can you pick me up from the pub and drive me home?
Said that this was impossible.
Do I want to? Drunk guy.
Move that boulder.
Sewage, empty sewage.
Primary the living hell out of these Democrats, and let's take over the party. That's a ghost ship. Let's board it. Let's take it.
I should go to the junkyard. I can't remember where I put the sewage tanker.
I've been a fan of TYT, I believe, for the last 6 years.
5 years.
3 years now. 7 years.
4 years now.
You kind of look it. Yeah, I can see it.
My boyfriend actually watches it every morning and every night, so I kind of just started watching it with him, and I love it. I mean, it's the only way that I find my news.
Looking through YouTube, looking for like political shows that look cool.
I came across a very angry rant from Cenk, and that's when I knew. So I was immediately in love with the show.
And then I had
I trust Cenk with my dog.
I watched the show in the morning. Whenever I had a bad day in high school.
I think.
Man, Cenk is just so blunt and honest, and I love the honesty, and there's no BS behind the news, and they just tell everything like it is.
There's nobody censoring them. There's nobody there to say you can't do this, you can't say that.
That feel of authenticity makes it seem like what they're saying is true.
I feel like I get the real story from the Young Turks.
I am TYT.
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 I am the Young Turks.
Breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. This is Brett Ehrlich with breaking news.
Can we,
with
like,
Brett Ehrlich.
get
Bernie Sanders wants to break Wall Street, and he wants to break it real bad.
This election is the most amazing of my lifetime. That's why I can't wait to talk to you guys
Blah,
about it. Not just
blah,
on air,
blah,
but because
blah,
of
blah.
aspiration. I'm going to have a private conversation with 4 of you if you have an aspiration account after the election. We're going to talk about what happened, but also what are progressives going to go do afterwards.
Oh yeah, I've got plenty of sausages more.
Don't worry about it. You're saving money, you're saving the planet, perfect. But it's definitely not too late. You could sign up right now. Aspiration.com.
Can I stand up, Booze? Dang it, Booze, stand up. I'm gonna make this Booze stand up whether it kills it or not. You know. Boom.
All right, back on a Young Turks, Cenk, Anna, and David Dane, executive editor of the American Prospect, has joined us. David, welcome.
Oh,
the
lips are off sync.
So,
wait, nope, it's back.
Tons of updates here, guys, and then we'll talk about
maybe slightly off sync
or not. Okay. So Biden somehow still clinging to a 0.2 lead with 83% reporting in Florida. We'll come back to that if it gets interesting. Wait, hold on, it just flipped. Donald Trump has now, just as I was speaking, taken the lead for the first time in a while now. 49.6 to 49.4 in Florida with 85% reporting. So we'll see if Biden can recapture the lead, but right now, Trump now up in Florida.
He's taking the lead for the first time.
Now, let me give you the latest results here.
Is that just in Florida or no?
Donald Trump has won South Carolina. He has won Alabama. On the other hand, Joe Biden has won Delaware. Joe Biden has won Connecticut. Joe Biden has won Illinois. Donald Trump has won Mississippi. Donald Trump has won Tennessee. Joe Biden has won Maryland. Joe Biden has won Massachusetts. Joe Biden has won New Jersey. But Donald Trump counters with Oklahoma. I'm telling you this in rapid succession because all these states were already locked in. They're very red or very blue. In fact, that leads me to one of the bluest states in the country. Joe Biden has won Rhode Island. Okay, so
okay, that's why.
But let me also
that's not part of the lake. I believe I've walked through that area before.
Okay, we have these are all.
Can we get more sleep, please?
Let you know. Chris Coons has won re-election in
Cenk, you're putting me to sleep, please.
One of Biden's friends and close associate, associate in his campaign as well. And a fellow senator from Delaware.
Well, I mean,
Dick Durbin,
it happens.
In Illinois, that is not surprising. These are all in the Senate. Ed Markey, who had a very tough primary challenge from Joseph Kennedy III, Ed Markey was the more progressive candidate there. He did win that primary and now has won the general election easily as expected. Cory Booker is reelected in New Jersey. Governor Chris Sununu, Republican, is reelected in New Hampshire. That's unfortunate. On the other hand, Jean Shaheen,
thank you, Cenk. Tell us all the unfortunate things.
Or Mean Jean. She's not known as either one of those, but she's a Democrat, or not but, because she's a Democrat, and she has won re-election in New Hampshire. The most, perhaps, out of all these unsurprising results, perhaps the most unsurprising.
I could bag all the kill you.
Jim Inhofe has won his election in Oklahoma. He'll be going back to the Senate, unfortunately, probably filled with snowballs. Jack Reed has won in Rhode Island. He'll be going back to the Senate. Bill Hagerty has won in Tennessee. John Carney has won in Delaware. And those are all the least surprising things you've ever heard.
I would honestly think that somewhat this election, the last election, would have driven more people to vote third party, but
Mitch McConnell has won.
It is what it is.
Kentucky, and will be going back to the Senate.
Yeah.
So all that money given to a moderate Democrat who we were told by Chuck Schumer had the best chance of winning that election, and it's called instantly. It turns out no chance at all. And so she has lost and Mitch McConnell has won, and the Grim Reaper heads back to the Senate. All right, before I give more results,
Grim Reaper.
David, let me ask that question that I alluded to in the beginning. Any reason to be worried yet?
I don't think so. When I looked at this race earlier this week, I didn't really have Florida on my radar.
It's too dark out here.
As a Biden state. I think that if you look at Where Biden has been successful, it's been with
just
whites.
enough.
And then where he's been somewhat unsuccessful is
sleepy
with
time.
Latinos. And really, the one place in Florida where he's running well behind Hillary Clinton is in Miami-Dade County, and that's with Latino voters. I think that the really interesting state to look at right now is Ohio.
Sorry, Despacito didn't work for the pandering.
In obviously Cuyahoga, but Lake County, Lorain County, Lucas County, the white blue-collar areas that, places like where the Lordstown factory was and where the Chevy Cruze was being built. And Donald Trump said, I'm bringing your jobs back. Nobody move from Lordstown. And then, nothing happens and they close down the facility. Ohio is very, very interesting right now. Biden is winning those counties. He is
got closed down. Who closed it down?
And there's about 30% or so of the vote in.
Boom! It's light outside now.
That's really one to watch. Trump won Ohio by 8 or 9 points in 2016, and Joe Biden is someone that we knew was going to relate well to older voters, to white voters in the northern part of the country. And him doing well in Ohio probably
that
means
was a good
something
one.
about how well he's going to do in Pennsylvania and in Michigan and in Wisconsin. So if you're looking for,
I want to get the
that is
SOFA. I
hopeful,
think
from a Democratic perspective, it's definitely Ohio right now.
I have one other that's hopeful. Now, I'm going to give you numbers that are going to confuse you a little bit, but we will explain. So first of all, with 34% reporting in Ohio, Biden has a 15-point lead. Now, again, this is not a normal election. In a normal election, I'd almost call that, because that's such a giant lead with a third of the numbers reporting. But this is not a normal election. They could be counting mail-in votes first, and Biden had a huge lead in mail-in votes. And New York Times does not have a number for a percentage chance of winning there. We told you earlier, New York Times says Florida with Trump.
Yeah, I know. For some reason, seatbelts help keep you a touch safer. But if you end up blasting out the windshield, it doesn't keep you safe from bugs killing you by hitting you in the face.
So which leads me to the interesting results. Trump with a 4-point lead in Georgia, and New York Times has him at a 78% chance of winning Georgia. So now that's obviously not good news for Biden, because it seemed like Biden might have a real shot at Georgia. On the other hand, I'm not too worried about. And you can
Someone's working outside.
That Trump only has a 78% chance of winning Georgia, which now we're getting real south, right?
I haven't really seen a player head in this game, which is interesting.
Situation because of Atlanta, and you know how close elections sometimes can get there. Obviously, with the Kemp
game, please. Thank you.
The most interesting, North Carolina, only 1% reporting. But New York Times must have information we don't have access to. Because Trump has a 26-point lead in North Carolina. But they're saying that Biden has a 66% chance of winning.
I don't want my taxes to go up, please.
Again, you're going to be freaked out by that. You're yelling pokes throughout the house if you're on the right-wing side. You're trying to call your friend to figure out what...
Rona, no!
No. It's about access to exit polling and mail-in ballot information, etc. 1% reporting is nothing, or it's actually less than 1% reporting. So that 26-point lead for Trump means absolutely nothing. And as you've seen tonight, as you've seen in all of our election coverage, we tell you if Biden had a 26-point lead with less than 1% reporting, that would also mean nothing. As we told you earlier about Biden's lead in Florida.
We shall see.
Much or anything at all, and now he's losing in Florida. But if the New York Times...
No. Game. Doggone.
Biden's really got a 66% chance of Carolina. That could come close to ending it right there. So it's... I'm not going to take the New York Times word for it. We want to have more percentage reporting before we get too excited about that. But David, yes, let me kick it over to you again.
I mean, I think the North Carolina projection is really largely based on pre-election day polling, which showed Biden with a small but consistent 2 to 3 point lead. So we'll see when the bigger numbers come in. But we're not
Oops,
talking about
I accidentally
1% of the vote
peed
in
at the
when
same
you're talking about
time.
Ohio. This is 40% of the vote, 40% of what's expected to be in the books in Ohio. The estimated
All that
vote total.
matters
And,
is Finnish sausage
Biden's
and
got
beer
a
in the long
56-42
run, guys.
lead. It's really interesting, and you know, obviously all caveats apply. There's going to be wild swings, blue mirages, red mirages, what have you, throughout this night. But you know, from where Biden is factoring in compared to where Hillary Clinton was in 2016, I think it's pretty significant. And what's more significant is that how it looks in Ohio is probably going to be indicative of how it looks throughout the Midwest.
Yeah, so there's also apparently encouraging numbers coming in from Indiana, even though Trump has obviously won Indiana. But it's encouraging in the patterns that they're seeing in the Midwest. Let me give you a little bit more details on the numbers in Ohio. It's now
Can we get this to flip, please? Thank you.
For Biden with 34% reporting. Again, if it was a normal election, that would be very indicative. In this election,
Oh, this ain't no normal election
it's a positive
either.
sign, but you can't get too excited about it because of the mail-in
Thank you.
situation. Right now, as things stand,
Where'd the windshield go? Is the
Biden
windshield still in there?
This is not at all important, even though Biden has a lead here in the New York Times forecast of Electoral College. Biden has 85, and Trump has 55. So Biden's winning by 30, but so far, no important swing state has been called, so that number is largely irrelevant. We're just having fun and updating you on the score.
Oh, yeah.
But that's
Makes
not a score that
sense,
matters,
honestly.
even with Biden leading by 30. Okay, I want to just remind you guys.
I
of
know
all the
people
things
that
we're doing,
froth at the mouth for this because
that
it's
are
like
fun,
football
too. We
forums,
get to
so...
100,000 concurrent viewers, which I think we're really close to between a couple of YouTube
I'm watching
channels
through
and Twitch and all
MPV,
other
so,
platforms
you
that
know,
we're
I don't
on.
think
We're
it's
going to
counting
release a shirt,
on
but
my
I don't-
end.
Given that Trump's about to win Florida, I'm not sure I want to release it yet because it's an anti-Trump shirt that has certain assumptions. Okay, so we'll see. We'll hold that in our back pocket. Come on, North
I want to see a
Carolina.
Clinton shirt.
And obviously, guys, if you can chip in at tyt.com/go, that's what allows us to have 13 hours
Move!
of election coverage for
Move,
you guys today.
Van,
That's what allows us
move!
to bring in all these wonderful
Come on.
progressives together. Ryan Grimm is on in the next hour. Ben Mankiewicz is going to join us later. Nina Turner, Jamal Bowman, Kara Eastman, Mike Siegel, Julie Oliver, and the list goes on. So this is headquarters for progressives, and obviously when we have updates on those races, we'll let you know
Up the
about
score.
the important Senate and House races as well. So far, just two,
No,
and
don't-
there's
come
a
on.
little bit of controversy on something that we reported earlier. So I say two because Mitch McConnell got called, but Paula Jean Swearingen's race was called, and she's saying online, guys, you called it with 0% reporting. Okay, I get it. As David was alluding to earlier, you're making assumptions based on earlier polling that you have, but let's let a couple of votes come in and see how it goes. And I think that's probably a fair request. So we reported that call earlier, but I think it's very fair for Paula Jean to say, hold your horses. Let's actually see how it turns out. Ava, yes, Anna, go.
So in the Senate,
Yeah,
in Georgia,
I mean,
it looks like Purdue is up so far.
I had a
50%
weird
votes
group of
in,
friends in
it's
high
like
school too,
13%.
so...
So Purdue is a Republican.
Yeah. So Purdue is the guy who got shellacked by Ossoff in that last debate and then ran and decided not to do a final debate because he was too scared. And he had that great look on his face like, as Ossoff was listing his crimes and his incompetence, etc.
Van!
But that doesn't mean that Ossoff's going to win. He was still an underdog going in. On the other hand, Democrats might pick up the other
Boom,
seat,
boom, boom. Come on,
in
get up there.
Georgia.
Oh, there we go.
That's a much more complicated race. I'll kick it over to David on that in a second. But I'm going to keep
Come
reading
on.
you guys' comments throughout, and we'll have some of them down below in the ticker as well. Ava's just joined through tyt.com/join. She says, just became a member, which I should have done long ago.
Oh, made it.
In Colorado, my stress is
We
through the
did
roof,
it!
but watching is keeping me sane presently. Keep up the great work.
Also, real quick,
I'm kind of insane myself.
Oh, so I still don't know what a hype train is and what the levels are, but it sounds super fun that we're on a level 3 hype train. Can I see level 4? That's a literal question. I don't know if there is a level 4. All right, one more comment before we go back to the results.
That flipping brought my fatigue up really high.
Many of my life stones mirrors yours, marriage, family,
Come on,
career. Proud to be here with you guys.
PowerPoint.
End of all things. Well, Joe,
We got stuff to do.
But we are. If Trump wins, you might be unfortunately correct. So we'll see how that goes. One more shout out to the sponsor as we go. Aspiration.com/TYT. Aspiration has been so great. They also plant trees. They also round up. They plant 10 trees when you sign up, and they don't
pay $1, plant a tree.
I love that companies are going this progressive direction. We should support them, and they support us, so it's a win-win. Aspiration.com/TYT. Unfortunately, I'm going to take another break here, but when we come back, I want to explain to you the second Georgia Senate.
They all take so many breaks. Stop it.
Including some good news that is supposed to be on the way, and I believe will arrive soon. So we'll be right back.
Well, I don't know. They probably take a few less than others.
This election is the most amazing of my lifetime. That's why I can't wait to talk to
It
you
is.
guys.
This year has been pretty amazing.
I'm going to have a private conversation with 4 of you if you have an aspiration account after the election. We're going to talk about what happened, but also what Progressive's going to go do afterwards. And that's really important. So if you already have an aspiration account, don't worry about it. You're saving money. You're saving the planet. Perfect. But it's definitely not too late. You can sign up right now. Aspiration.com/TYT. Sign up before the election, and we'll have the conversation afterwards. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
Also, in the studio, Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society. It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really,
It's about people.
Of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with
Florida man drives through flood.
economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you got to force people into their humanity. Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
Oh my goodness.
That vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do. And it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic.
It's not all it does. It goes to businesses that fail too.
Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel-free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to
Oh, and it also goes to pay for mortgages and give loans for healthcare and cars and
2020 is everything. Everything will be decided in 2020, and then we'll either have pessimism a long time, or we'll have optimism.
There is some good news when it comes to elections throughout the country, especially for progressives.
He's struggling in polls. He's trailing Joe Biden in many of these battleground states, and he knows that
I like polls. They tell me a lot.
to cast their ballots, especially as we're dealing with this pandemic. Well, maybe it'll give him an edge over Biden.
We need to get rid of these people who are in office, who enable these systems that continue to oppress us. Start using your votes and your dollars for
That's something that I think I can agree with.
and your humanity.
Partially.
Defiance is what you need in order to fight for what you know is right. The fight never ends.
Progressive candidates come on this show, we help them, and they've at least got a fighter's chance.
Expand the squad.
Here we go, Squad 2.0.
Okay, let's go find the junk.
This is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important. This time, it's real. If he wins...
With all our corporate, yeah.
Corporation, and we're going to make it so that it's a decentralized force throughout the country. So that
See, when you've got decentralization, you can't control it all.
troll farms and go in and neutralize the enemy and then start building responsible.
Hello, sofa. Why'd you drive over that? Sofa.
All right, lots of big news for you guys. Cenk Uygur, David Day, and Anna Kasparian with you guys on election night. Good news, bad news. Let's start with the bad news. Decision Desk HQ has called Florida for Trump. I am not calling Florida yet, but I'm not sure that that is relevant, whether it's on both counts. Me calling it is not that relevant. And whether Trump wins or not in Florida is likely not that relevant. But that is the bad news. Now let's move on to the good news. In Ohio, with 42% reporting, Biden's still with a 12-point lead. And more importantly, Delaware County, which is a Republican stronghold, is coming in for Biden. Now, that's actual good news, because that's specific context to not just, hey, I can't tell if it's mail-in ballots, I can't tell which county it's from. No, that indicates that Biden is actually swinging Ohio. Doesn't mean he's going to win it, okay? But there's a much better chance that he wins Ohio now, knowing those details, and there's a better chance that he wins Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, and most importantly, Pennsylvania, if this is how that region of the country is going, and it looks like it is going in that direction. So we'll keep you updated on that. And remember, Biden has to win basically just one of the swing states that are in doubt. I don't think Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin are in doubt. But Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Arizona were in doubt, Georgia in doubt. And so Biden has to just basically win one, okay? If it's a little bit more complicated than that, but not much. So then that leads me to North Carolina, where with 55% reporting, Biden has a 13-point lead. So if you got freaked out over Florida, if
this is something else. Okay, gotcha.
It's over, and Biden's president, and we're rid of Trump. So here comes a hope hype train, or maybe just a hope train. By the way, for those of you
a pipe train, got it.
We did actually reach level 5 hype train on Twitch. And apparently you max out there. Everybody arrives at their destination. You got there so quick. They go, okay, congrats. So a super strong Twitch audience, and we love you guys for it.
Yay!
I'll read one more comment here because it's a fun one, and then I'll kick it over to David for an explanation of Georgia. And you guys have thousands of great comments. But from our member section, Amos Coso Jr. writes in, first time watching election live, and my son just asked, why do I have to watch the same thing on my computer and live TV? I responded with TYT is our truth, and TV is the other people's truth. That's a really interesting way of putting it. The good news is, by the way, our truth is the actual truth. We do it in numbers, in math, science, logic. We believe in all those things. And as you saw in 2016, even if things are not headed in the right direction, we don't ever fudge the facts. You got to level with people and tell them exactly what the reality is. Unfortunately, a lot of not just the Fox News and the right wing, but a lot of the mainstream media have their own biases and that are built in. Not necessarily an agenda, that's debatable, but certainly a giant establishment bias that's built in. That's partly why they didn't see Trump coming in 2016, and they didn't see Bernie coming in 2016.
They didn't see him coming.
You did see that coming. All right. And by the way, if you want to be a member, you hit the join button below on YouTube. On Twitch, if you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you anything to be a member, but we do get the revenue. So that's a great win-win. So please do that. And if you can join in other ways, that'd be great too. Actually, before I go to Georgia, Anna, you have an update?
Yes, so Justice Dem Marie Newman, I apologize, is projected to win in Illinois' 3rd District.
So it's excellent. So we're going to get a bunch of Justice Democrats that are going to win. We're going to announce Jamal Bowman soon and Cori Bush soon. But Marie Newman is on the board.
I might have to put
That's
the
8 Justice Democrats now.
what is it?
I was led to believe that we couldn't get one. Huh, it's funny how that's working out.
Backseat in Satsuma.
Dave, break down Georgia for us.
But I really want that roll page so that I can put the harness in.
Who was previous senator, retired.
And then just go romping and rolling everywhere.
That election is kind of like the way primaries are done in California, where you get to vote for anyone on the ballot, and then the top two, provided that nobody gets 50%, the top two advance to a runoff that's going to be on January the 5th. Another thing that happens in Georgia is that if nobody in even a general election gets 50%, that goes to a runoff, and in this case, it'll be on January 5th. That's likely in the Purdue.
We're just gonna push it all off.
Because there's a libertarian there that's expected to get a sufficient number of votes such that nobody will have 50%. So it's very likely that you could see 2 Senate elections in Georgia on January 5th. You know, the Senate begins the next session on January 3rd. So we might, you could have a 49-49 Senate.
Can I just look at numbers?
Georgia race is outstanding. As for who's going to likely advance to that top 2 in the second and special, it's Reverend Warnock, the Democrat, Reverend Raphael Warnock from Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta.
Okay, give me a second. These people can't do nothing. ABC do. We've seen this one before.
Essentially, the first half of the vote should be Dem leaning. The second half should be R leaning. Look, I like to mess around with the Eries. We got Erie County. Erie County is going to be important in Pennsylvania, and Erie County could be telling here too. Right now, and it's only half the vote in, you see that Joe Biden is winning it. But you can see why I care about Erie County. When Obama carried Ohio, he carried Erie County. When Trump carried Ohio, he carried Erie County. So look, along the lake here, and I told you, along these lake counties, this is where Trump cleaned up. This is where Biden has to improve. Halfway through, don't pop any champagne corks if you're the Democrats here, but clearly Ohio much more competitive. Let me take you down to North Carolina right now, another state watching more than 60% of the vote is in. What are we up to? 62.
Oh, beautiful.
I was talking about margins. Biden had a bad day in Miami-Dade.
Don't tell Tamo I left a sofa here so that I can sleep.
And in the triangle here in Wake County. Let me show you something here. You see this split 82%?
No, right there.
Wake County over the last
Sweet.
As you can see here, Joe Biden, Wake County, this is Research Triangle. You guys know this. This is, hotbed, a lot of college-educated suburban voters here. And as you can see, this is a case where Joe Biden's outperforming his former running mate by a big-time margin. He's already got a ton of vote here. He's got almost double the vote of Trump here. And as you can see, Clinton only got 100,000 advantage there. So already big margins there. By the way, the story is the same in Mecklenburg here, which is Charlotte. I'll show you, as you can see here, he's just already overperforming big time Clinton and Obama. So when you look at what's going on in North Carolina, again.
Okay, so we've got the thirst down.
This election is going to come down county by county.
That's right.
Up the score in
well, look, and I always like to spend time out here in these more rural counties. These are big Trump counties, so we can see, is he hitting his numbers here, right? Biden 3 points better. Okay, I'm going to go here, Henderson County. Again, rural county. Again, this is Biden 8 points better.
Where's the juice?
Keep going down over here in this part of North Carolina. Rutherford County, another one. Biden improving by 3 points. This is the story across the board. And again, I do want to point out, and it's right down here. Look at this. I worried that my board wasn't going to let me write all the way down here on the edge.
Continue to the next.
Anyway, yeah, that's
Yes.
very well. But I swear to God, there's a 2% number here. I mean, it is amazing here that you're seeing that.
No juice.
Andrew's brought it up. I mean, that's Wisconsin.
I need more juice.
There was a third-party vote that drew.
Give it a second to buffer.
2016. We don't have that same third-party vote this time.
No, we
This
don't.
is head-to-head, and it's a whole
Head-to-head.
different
Let's just take a look at Florida and check back in. And as you can see, the lead keeps growing for Donald Trump. So this is not looking like, yes, there's plenty of vote left. Let's look at our gray space here. Still got 1 million votes. So you can't sit here and call anything when you're separated by 225,000 votes here, 1 million votes. But you guys can do the math. Joe Biden's got to win a lot of those 1 million votes to make up a 226,000 vote deficit here. Florida is looking a little red tonight.
All right.
Let's bring in Kate Snow and talk a little bit, go back to Pennsylvania if we can right now. Kate, you've spent a lot of time there. This is a place that we saw a lot of Obama voters break for Trump last time around, and then some second thoughts from some of those voters. You tapped into it. I tapped into it in my visit there last week. Describe the dynamics at play in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so I was in Western Pennsylvania, which I think is important.
Go to Spurdy.
Because Pennsylvania is a complicated state. It's not all one kind of voter. Where I was over by Pittsburgh, I was in Beaver County, which is
He's a lotto ticket.
right along the county borders, the Ohio border.
Kyllä tää on hirvittävää tää bensan hintakin, kun mitenkä se vaan nousee koko ajan.
You haven't seen anything yet.
80-luvun loppupuolella, kun se nousi 3 markkaa ylitä se bensan hinta, niin silloin moni lopetti aamulla ajamisen, kun ei ole varmaa. Nytkin se on 5 markkaakin saattaa olla bensa, niin kyllä se on hirvittävää. Mitenkä sinäkin oikein pystyt ajelemaan sillä omalla autolla? On niin hirveä kauppa.
Back in 2016 by 19 points. This was a place where people really were drawn in by President Trump's message. So even if they're nominally Democrats, they're now voting for President Trump. So what we were looking at is, are they still going to be with President Trump, and what kind of numbers in Beaver County this time around? And I think what's interesting is I met a lot of people who...
Oh, look at that thirst go down and the hunger.
Who, again, used to be diehard
Like that.
Democrats, and now they're really into Trump. They've already, they had the big sign in their yard. But then I also talked to a woman named Marion Wise who voted for Trump. She said she never actually thought he'd win in 2016, but she was attracted to his message of drain the swamp. And now she's completely disenchanted with him. She's just over President Trump and not going to go there. So I think that's going to be a big question, is those red counties, those counties that we think are going to go red for President Trump in Pennsylvania, particularly in the West, perhaps also in the Northeast. There are a lot.
I need to go to the island and pick up that Cooooverage.
On this election night, is it going to look like what you're seeing in Florida, where red counties get even more red?
Kate Snow, thank you, Kate.
All right, the economy, the big issue Andrew just mentioned, showing up in the exit poll. Senior business correspondent Stephanie Rule with us. What are you watching? What are you seeing tonight, Stephanie?
Savannah, we know that people vote
Affects
them, not offends them, and that absolutely means money. Back in February, President Trump thought he'd be running and winning on the economy as his top issue. COVID changed that. And while normally economic issues, we've seen Joe Biden start chipping away at the president's lead on the economy because we don't have a national plan to address COVID. And until we address the health crisis, we're still going to be in this financial crisis. Just think about it, Savannah. While a portion of the country is doing well economically, our recovery has been like decay. For people who can work from home, who can afford to buy homes or cars while interest rates are so low, or people who are invested in the markets. But for millions of others, they're out of work, and if they're out of work, they're at risk of being without health care. We've got a lot of small businesses at risk. We've got a divided economy at maybe the most critical time of the year.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. We want to turn now to former counsel to the president and manager of his 2016 campaign.
No, we know we've got a long way to go. Even in 2016, Savannah, we waited until 2:30 for Secretary Clinton to call and concede. These things can go late into the night, but we do like what's happened in Florida for several reasons. Obviously, it's an incredibly important electoral vote-rich state, but also it's a representation of the country. Many people are moving there from other
Pennsylvania?
states. 70% of Miami-Dade
It's only... okay.
We see that Vice President Biden is underperformed there, but we also are looking at some of the exit polls among Hispanics elsewhere. So in Florida, plus 27 for Hillary Clinton, plus 8 for Joe Biden. In Georgia, plus 40 for Hillary Clinton, plus 25 for Joe Biden. Ohio, among Hispanics, plus 41 for Hillary Clinton, now plus 24 for Joe Biden. So
Imagine that people are more multifaceted.
Are telling us all, reminding us all, that we throw into our voter cauldron many different issues, ideas, images, and individuals, and we stir it up and then we make our choice. The Trump campaign very much likes what they see in the day of voting because we know that the Democrats did a fantastic job banking that early, really first day of early voting. In fact, in places like North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Michigan, they had huge gains in the first day. If you wanted to vote against Donald Trump for the last 4 years, you were ready. You stood in line for hours and you did it. If you can vote early, you can't vote often. You can only vote against him one time. And we're counting on the people who turned out to the rallies and even those who didn't want to put signs in the yard, stickers in the buffer to turn out today. But we're patient people. We'll see this through the night or through the week if we need to. And I think just like Chuck Todd was going over, we're looking at some counties as well to see 2016, 2020 performance, but also looking at some surprises. Sometimes voters repeat history and sometimes they make history.
Kellyanne, I'm curious, are you comfortable, considering that some of the exit poll numbers you've seen, the prioritizing of the virus versus the economy, and how that looked in certain...
He's got to press her earpiece back in.
That's a unique unicorn you guys created, and I think you guys deserve a ton of credit as a 4-year project. So kudos to you and that organization. That is an impressive feat. But I am curious, are you comfortable closing the way the president did on the virus, given what you've seen in the exits in a lot of these other states that where a majority of the voters appear to be on the other side, virus versus the economy?
I've always thought the president should go back in time, Chuck, and really talk more about all that was accomplished. He talks about China and European travel being shut down and how they saved lives, but we were in lockdown at the White House for quite a while. We couldn't go to Mar-a-Lago, Bedminster, rallies, foreign travel, visits to states. There was nothing. And what were we doing? 7 days a week in that task force. My seat was right behind Drs. Birx and Fauci. Actually, I learned a great deal from both of them. And the president signed into law $1 trillion worth in the CARES Act. PPP to help save these small businesses and save American jobs. PPE, billions of masks and gloves and gowns, and of course ventilators, thankfully, for anybody who needed it. So I've always been urging, go back in time and recognize that we women are the chief healthcare officers of our households. We control about 2 out of every 3 healthcare dollars spent in this country. And even if you, as a female voter, say, I'm not particularly worried about me or someone in my household, God forbid, contracting or dying from COVID, I'm worried about other people. I'm not just a direct stakeholder, I'm a shareholder for other people in my life. I'm worried about Edna in the nursing home. I'm worried about Grandma who we haven't been able to visit. I'm worried about my kids' school reopening too quickly. And I've been a very loud voice about healthcare being a very important issue to women. And I think that going back in time and taking more credit and reminding people all that we did came together. Do you remember, Chuck, in March, the president had a 62% approval rating for handling of COVID? And I remember telling him in the Oval Office, we've never had a 62% approval rating on anything, including the economy. We presided over a dynamic economy. I think at that time, the country really was rallying around the flag and saying, let's all come together and watch the mobilization. Now, I think the president's done a great job reminding Americans of the facts that the vaccine development under
Guys, move the truck faster. I know you can.
NIH has never seen anything come together so swiftly for the government and the private sector. In less time, Chuck, than it takes to have a baby, we've developed a vaccine. We've got 3 or 4 in the final phases. That's great news for everyone. That will help. The virus. The vaccine will eradicate the virus.
All right, Kellyanne.
Hopefully that will come sometime by the end of the year or early next year.
Kellyanne Conway, thank you so much for being with us. I want to get
Gonna cut you off here now. Thank you.
Well, at this hour, Lester, as I'm continuing to talk to sources across the country who are watching numbers in these key states, at Florida, I would say you were just talking.
Utah ain't a key state.
Why Florida seems to be trending for President Trump, but Democrats I'm talking to are essentially saying that they're at the point where they're basically ready to write it off for Joe Biden, and they're starting to talk about the numbers in the suburbs, and they're pointing to Chuck Todd's mother's county, Seminole County, in the suburbs of Orlando, as a place to look to try and see if those kinds of trends are going to be replicated in other suburbs in Atlanta, for example, in Georgia or in Phoenix. So I think
I think I have 2 strokes, don't I?
That they realize that they're potentially having a tough night here in Florida. There's also a couple House races in Florida where we may see some surprises, particularly Congresswoman Donna Shalala, who's a Democrat down in the Miami-Dade area, who may actually be on track to lose her race. And the House, remember, every member of Congress is up for re-election, and we have been anticipating that Democrats were likely to win seats in the House, potentially in the single digits. They would have considered double digits to be a good night, but that Shalala race potentially a warning sign for them.
All right, Casey, thank you very much. If you had Chuck Todd's mom in your drinking game, you're having a good night so far. Back in a moment, more Decision 2020 election night coverage in just a moment. A live look, Senator Mitch McConnell delivering his victory speech. He's headed back to the Senate. Will he be majority leader or minority
Oh my
leader?
goodness.
And the voters of the United States will tell. We'll be watching it back in a moment. Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you, whether you're back to school. What do you guys think? We're excited.
I don't like these, but
we're keeping you safe.
you know.
Every morning on Today.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall,
wow.
we're right there with you, whether you're back to school. What do you guys think? We're excited. Or back to work. We're keeping you safe. I love being back. Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line.
We've been there and back.
Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
A real close-knit group of nurses who pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus. You're not just any patient, you're their friend.
These folks saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today
Oh wait,
at
I need to
MSNBC.com.
pull off the scoot belt.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there
Empty mailbox, no love letters, not even from the power company.
News made for your streaming world.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
If you are sitting across from them right here, right now, what would you say?
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Drinky, drinky.
Welcome back. Top of the hour, we're going to have a lot more poll closings, but let's talk about Pennsylvania. Something tells me Andrea Mitchell will be talking about it all night long and then some.
And then for several days.
Where'd that come from?
One of the really important things about Pennsylvania is that Hillary Clinton only won the suburban counties, the 4 big suburban counties outside of Philadelphia by 180,000 votes. That was not nearly enough to offset Donald Trump's big strength out west, where Casey Hunt was talking about, Kate Snow was talking about, and the rural vote, the steel workers, the energy industry. In any case, what they now think is that the suburban collar counties around
Let
Philadelphia.
me
It's a
take
freedom
a
of policy
second.
edge. That's what they really need
I'll
to
be
do
right back.
for Joe Biden, and that's what they're looking at. The other thing was that it was
Bye.
70-30 in those rural western Pennsylvania areas.
70-30 for Trump,
over
yes.
Clinton.
Yes.
They think that Joe Biden, coming from Scranton, being a working class union guy, can shave that to 64-36, something of that nature. The other surprising thing is that, contrary to what the Biden people had expected, we're seeing in the exit polls that nationally, seniors are going marginally for Trump over Biden. People had thought that that would be a strong Biden vote. Seniors worried about health care, worried about COVID. But so far, it's 51-48, something like that.
So seniors did not abandon Trump over the coronavirus, but we'll see what happens in the suburbs, as you say.
Let's take a look at North Carolina. A fair amount of the
votes
in there, Chuck.
No, a lot of the votes in. Biden's holding a lead here. As you can see, he's got a 219,000 vote lead. I want to show you something here just so you can see how much vote is left. So he's got about 200,000 vote lead. We think there's about 1.8 million vote still left to come in. And you see gray counties, for what, in case you're wondering when you see this, it means we have no vote in them yet. If it's gray. So it's stuff like this. Let me just quickly show you something here, just to show you already Joe Biden's vote total here, 2.149, okay, with 70% in. Let me just show you Hillary Clinton. When all the votes were counted, it was 2.89. First of all, you could see turnout is way up, but you could see Democratic turnout in particular. And the story.
Okay, I think I can leave
right
it on
now
this
in these
side
suburban
now
counties.
and be
I
safe.
showed you Mecklenburg here.
Yeah.
Right now, he's got a nearly 200,000 vote lead out of there.
Oh no, the bugs.
Didn't get but 140,000 out of it. And you can see here, he's even outperforming. Let me go to 08 Obama, because 08 Obama carried North Carolina. And as you can see, he got 100,000 out of Mecklenburg. He could get 200,000. That's how you win the state of North Carolina, guys.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. Joining us now, Jose Diaz-Balart. He's in Florida. He's the anchor of Weekend Nightly News and Noticias Telemundo. And Jose, the Florida story really focuses on the Latino vote and a massive get out the vote and persuasion operation dedicated to South Florida, a place you know well.
I do indeed. Good evening. And it's going to be the story if indeed Donald Trump ends up winning the state of Florida. It could have a lot to do with specifically South Florida and the Latino vote in South Florida, specifically Cuban-American voters, Venezuelan-American voters.
Venezuelan and Cubans.
Voters, and some Colombian-American voters that for the last 3 years, Donald Trump has been working very consistently, insistently, and also there's been a very strong push for the last months that Democrats are socialist, and that attack went unanswered for a long time. Maybe that will have some impact on how Florida ends up. We'll wait and see.
All right, Jose, my friend, thank you, sir. Much more to come on this election night. We'll be right back.
It's gonna make a difference.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is
Just
Kamala Harris?
pee under the
Join
bench.
me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
Washington feels more chaotic than ever. It's my job to ask
Yes,
the tough
it
questions,
is.
left and right, and help you make sense of it all.
God dang it. Get warmer.
Washington feels more chaotic than ever.
Oh, the
It's my
same
job
one
to ask
again.
the tough questions, left and right, and help you
Oh
make sense of it all.
boy.
You ready to go to work?
Rise, my thermometer, rise to the occasion.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus. The story.
Save power, unplug your phone.
The final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President
These
Trump,
ads ever get tiring? Occasionally.
The wind standing these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
Actually, I wonder, can I change these? Let me do that.
On hold, should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police
We can
murder
uncapture
of
the
unarmed black
cursor
men
for this
has been
one.
an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Boom. Yes. Rise.
Well, we're pushing on toward the 9 o'clock Eastern hour, and there will be a lot of closings coming up at 9 o'clock. Let's walk you through them. Battlegrounds, including Arizona, Michigan, Minnesota, Texas, and Wisconsin.
And the fact that we're calling Texas something of a battleground this year shows you what an extraordinary year it is. In just a few moments, we will have those poll closings. We are starting to fill out our map already. Some surprises. And one thing that is not surprising, Florida was tight, but so far it is trending in the president's direction. A must-win for him tonight.
And as we wait that next big round,
Kanye West everywhere.
Here briefly, you are watching Decision 2020 on NBC.
Bam, 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 bam. Hey. Dude. Okay, what's the buzz? Okay, cool.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We're excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American
How
way
long
of
did
death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
Thank you.
The Last Word with
Just
Lawrence
steam the
O'Donnell.
alcohol right
Weeknights at
out.
10
It'll be
on
fine.
MSNBC.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala Next in Line. New episodes every Monday.
Boy, look at that rise.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
A real close-knit group of nurses who pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus.
You're not just any patient. You're their friend. These folks saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives
Just
by
right on the
experts you
sauna
know
wall,
and
that's it.
trust for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
Is there a way to mop that up? Honestly.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay, give me the... Drop my thirst, please, dang it.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
Never showing you the
Joe Biden
actions.
hits
Here we
front and
go.
Center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
from every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell him right now?
On the ground.
The winds fanning these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
All right, we're about to pick up a little momentum on the evening. At the top of the hour, about a minute away, 14 states with a combined total of 156 electoral votes about to close, including 5 battleground states, Arizona, Michigan, Minnesota, Texas, and Wisconsin. These are all very important states we've been watching and potential paths to victory for both candidates.
And let's look at some of the results we do have in Florida. Is counting votes fast. It's too close to call there. Pennsylvania.
Too close to call. No.
In Georgia, it's too early to call. Also, North Carolina, too early. And Ohio, too early.
And let's look at Ohio. It is too early to call there, too. And for folks wondering, yes, we had early voting either in person or by mail. Like
52%.
100 million people voted before Election Day. And if you are wondering, yes, we've taken that into account when we give you that expected vote number. It includes the estimated early vote as well as the day of vote. And we're awaiting those 9 o'clock poll closings. Texas and Arizona, big Latino populations, but a different kind
Talking
of
about this one again.
in Florida. Andrea, hold that thought because we do want to mention, here we go, Texas, too early to call at this hour. In Arizona, it is also too early to call, as you might expect.
Michigan, too early to call.
Got some results in from Minnesota. Not many, actually. Too early to call there. Wisconsin, it's going to be a long one. And in
Give
New
me
York,
that Utah.
Biden will pull that one out and not shock anyone.
Colorado, too early.
I saw no numbers for New York, but you're saying Biden? Really?
Too early. And Louisiana, too early. Biden over the lead.
All right, and let's look at Nebraska. Too early to call there. We're keeping an eye on that one particular congressional district that can be quite competitive. In New Mexico, it is too early to call. In North Dakota, too early to call, but the president is leading.
Same story in South Dakota. The president leading too early to call. And Wyoming, it's too early to call. Trump with a lead there.
So let's go
Nice.
to a map of 270 and let's see how it shakes out at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 6 o'clock Pacific, and there you have it.
Really?
Numbers don't quite tell
Wow.
the story. We're going to have to wait for all the votes to be counted. Andrea, we were talking about Texas and Arizona. Now the polls have closed. They'll start counting the votes. The Latino vote, incredibly important there.
Incredibly important, and as Chuck was saying, Miami-Dade, Florida, the Cuban-American community is a unicorn, but it's a very different kind of Latino vote in Arizona and in Texas. In Texas, Latinos going by plus 19 for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. In Arizona, Latinos going plus 30 for Joe Biden over Donald Trump. Obviously, a different composition. Only plus 8 for Joe Biden over Donald Trump in Florida. So that shows you the disparity, where you've got different group of Latino vote in Arizona. Out west, you have more Mexican Americans, more from other parts of South America.
Doggone it.
Less of the, obviously, very few of the Cuban Americans, and you have very different ideology and different voting.
The Latino vote's going to be big in Arizona and Texas, as is the suburban vote. But there's obviously big swaths of rural parts of those states that tend to be Trump country.
It is, and Texas is going to be, by the way, we already have a lot of vote in, because they do a lot of early voting, but they're going to be in there. But I want to
Look at that dirtiness go down.
because Ohio, believe it or not, has been sitting there. Again, we're still waiting for somebody to win a road game, right? We have yet to have a flip. But as you can see, we got 53% of the vote in. Biden's holding about a 266,000 vote advantage here. And just so you show, we still got a ton of vote, right? Nearly 3 million votes are left to count. As you can see here, the breakouts, just so you can see, 1.3 of the early absentee has been counted. Mike DeWine basically said half the vote was early and half the vote was expected today. Governor of Ohio on Election Day. So, but let me just tell you, one of the other things we have, if he's going to win Ohio, if Joe Biden's going to make a comeback in Ohio, he's going to have to flip a whole bunch of what we call the Obama-Trump counties. All of these counties here right now, and what you see in the red, if they're red, they're still trending Trump, and if they're blue, they're trending Biden. So we can see here, Wood County, a small county here. This is right now. But you can see Trump narrowly carried it, but he carried it by 8 points because a ton of third-party vote here. ton of third-party vote in Ohio did really well. Johnson did much better there. But
Where's
you can see,
the
this is a county
rack?
that Obama carried. Biden hasn't caught his number there, but he's getting close, and he's obviously going to outperform Obama 12. So I'm going to be monitoring all of these Obama Trump counties, particularly in Ohio, because the only path.
Oh, look at that! Look at that! Look at that!
Is if he's going to take most of these counties that Trump carried and flips most of them, if not all of them, back to blue.
But polls have had the president pretty far ahead in Ohio.
Well, all this year, it's been interesting. He's been ahead, but the margins have been smaller. It's been a little bit of older voters, and there is a bit of Joe Biden. It plays a little bit better in Ohio than maybe any other Democrat that had run for president during this primary.
Want to put up
Oh,
if we change our
got it.
There, or have we? Okay, Trump now officially leading in Florida. 29 electoral votes are watching there. John.
Okay.
Want to go to Kristen
Yeah, no,
Welker, who's at Biden.
What's wrong, guys?
Hey, Kristen, what's the talk there?
Okay, give it a second. It's gotta catch up.
Florida starts to slip out of their hands.
Well, they are acknowledging that, Savannah, and I'm told by officials that they're in a wait-and-see mode, but they still feel very confident about their path to 270. And look, we go back to this idea that they fought hard for Florida, but didn't need Florida in order to win. There are a number of other paths, but the question is, what does this potentially mean about Georgia, about North Carolina? I put that question to a campaign official who said, not a whole lot. Look, they think that the electorate is unique in Florida for all of the reasons that you've been talking about, particularly in the Miami
Yeah, you
area.
just launched into the air. Go.
Characterize Joe Biden as socialist stuff. Obviously, that's a characterization that he would reject outright. But one top Democrat telling me they still feel very solid about their chances in Georgia and North Carolina. Now, what if they don't win either state? Well, officials tell me that is okay because Joe Biden still has a path to 270 without winning those two states. He would need to win Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And so that is why you have Joe Biden visiting Pennsylvania 14 times, more than any other battleground state since he won the nomination. That's why he was there again today in Scranton, in Philadelphia, really trying to drive up the vote in Philadelphia, in the suburbs. Of course, that part of the
Fireworks bag.
did not turn out in force in
Sounds like a
2016.
problem to me that I can solve.
A lot of victory in the all-important state of Pennsylvania, Savannah and Lester.
All right, let's bring in Hallie Jackson right now at the White House. Hallie?
So we've been talking about Ohio. Chuck just had that up on the big board there. That's a really interesting state because the Trump campaign, folks that I've been talking to throughout the day and into the evening here, had been feeling confident about the way that that was going to go. Based on some of the polling that Savannah mentioned, they'd been seeing something similar internally. That was actually one of the battleground states that they felt most confident about, along with Florida. So that is one that we're watching very closely, given what Chuck is referencing and the way that, again, with still very early in the night, still a lot of vote to come in, but with what we're seeing in some parts of Ohio and what we're looking for there. You've also got the state, as Kristen was talking about with the Biden campaign, of Pennsylvania. That is actually the place where President Trump campaigned more than anywhere else. And I can tell you that there are some counties that the Trump team is looking at tonight. So Dauphin County, for example, that's kind of in the central eastern part of the state near Harrisburg. You've got some of those collar counties right around Philadelphia, Bucks County, Chester County, Montgomery County. They're looking at Erie County, for example, in the western part of the state, a more sort of rural area, an area where the president feels confident. He has spent so much time in that state because it is critically important. Another state the president has spent a lot of time in is North Carolina. I was just there yesterday, actually, in Fayetteville, and I can tell you that folks in President Trump's orbit are looking specifically at some of those, if we could go back to that big board, when we do, those counties still in gray, right around Raleigh-Durham, right? Because that is going to be really important. You can see I'm there, still in white here.
Yep, very
Joe Biden
important.
needs to do well there. They're wondering what the margins are going to be. A lot of eyes on North Carolina here. And then the other state that I'll mention is Georgia, too. Looking at what the president's performance will be, that is a state that, again, is sort of on the cautiously optimistic to optimistic bubble for Team Trump based on our latest reporting.
All right, Hallie, thank you. And joining us now, NBC News contributor Hugh Hewitt, host of the Hugh Hewitt Show on the Salem Radio Network, a Trump supporter, and Maria Teresa Kumar, president and CEO of Voooooote Latino, a Biden supporter. Welcome to both of you. Let me talk to you, Maria
Did you
Teresa.
steal my vote?
How do you feel about what has happened in Florida? We haven't called it, but of course the president is said to be leading, and the results in Miami-Dade disappointing for Joe Biden, in particular among Latino votes.
So, first of all, everybody knew that Florida
was going to be the problem child. It's a very close call, as Andrea was mentioning earlier.
Florida's a bit of a problem child.
But for folks watching,
That's normal,
the
though.
other states that are up for grabs are Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, and Arizona. 4 of those states, and this is what really differentiates the Latino vote in Florida compared to the other ones, is that all of them had local legislation that had show me your paper anti-immigrant laws. That was a political awakening moment for the Latino community roughly about 6
Show me that you are able to legally vote here.
candidates that have not only run for office but are quite competitive. You see that in Texas, you see that in North Carolina, you see that in Georgia, and absolutely in Arizona. And you also see an aging in of the Latino population. For example, in Texas, you have 25% of Latino youth unregistered voters are in Texas, and they're outperforming. 33% of the people in the Latino community that sat it out last time, Savannah, are voting again. So you see a huge surge in these populations where in these states where there has been a lot of friction and a lot of anti-immigrant policies. Florida is simply, that's not the case. They don't have those really diminishing, difficult pieces of legislation that racially profile the Latino community.
All right, Hugh, let me bring in here. Talk about North Carolina. What do you see there that may worry you or may encourage you?
The
Fish
good news
trap.
about North Carolina is that it's more solidly Tom Tillis than I had expected it to be at this hour. In fact, the Senate everywhere is looking very good for Republicans. John James, I believe, is running ahead of President Trump in Michigan. The early numbers on David Perdue look very good vis-a-vis John Ossoff.
Look at that thirst disappear.
And I spoke to Joni Ernst earlier today. She's feeling very confident in Iowa. Susan Collins is feeling confident in Maine. And so, as good as I feel about the president right now and the Senate, to go back to Ohio, what Chuck was looking at, my hometown of Trumbull County, is first went for the President Trump in 2016 for the first time for a Democrat since Richard Nixon in 1972.
That thirst slowly dropping.
In Ohio that I know Chuck knows, and you guys will know, is that Ron Portman is not on the ballot this time, providing an additional kind of ground game and strength.
It doesn't matter. I've got a case of beer up there anyway.
Not on the ballot. He helped get the president over the line 4 years ago. So I'm watching that with great concern, but I am very cheered by the Florida numbers. There are some people I know NBC has not called Florida, but some people have called Florida for President Trump. It's very cheered that that's an early call, and I extrapolate that out to a few congressional districts in California where that voter who left a socialist country, that's how I'm characterizing it. That would include Venezuelans, that would include Nicaraguans, that would include people, of course, from Cuba. I think that vote is
People that have lived through socialism and communism. Yes.
right now I'm pretty happy with the exception of I would love to see Ohio get some more red votes pretty quickly.
Right, Hugh and Maria, thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
All right, let's bring in Casey Hunnan. Have you got some reporting on North Carolina, which we're watching closely, Texas as well?
Okay.
That's right, Savannah, as I've been
More
talking to
states.
sources on both sides of the aisle, and one of the places that I try to look is to find agreement in terms of what we're seeing, and both sides of the aisle do seem to be in agreement that Tom Tillis, who's running for Senate in North Carolina, seems to be performing better, certainly than many of my sources expected he might. And I will say both Democratic and Republican sources who were pretty concerned about Tillis, if you were a Republican, and whether he was going to be able to
Dirtiness doesn't go up. Wow.
Raises questions about where things stand in the presidential race, which my sources are also saying is very, very close, but my Democratic sources are less optimistic about it than they were just an hour or so ago. And that's a trend that's holding across the Sun
I don't know
Belt,
what
Texas
that's ticking
as well.
is, but
There was a chance that
I'm
Democrats
worried.
were perhaps going to take back the Texas State House. That has incredible repercussions as we head into a season of redistricting. They're now not optimistic that that's something that they're going to be able to pull off, although we still have a lot of data.
I can swim.
There's also questions about Georgia. Senator David Perdue, a Republican, who also potentially, we had talked about, was in danger from a Democratic challenger. Some of the conversations heading into the night were, would David Perdue's opponent get 50%? Increasingly, it's now looking like Perdue may be in much better shape.
That also raises questions about where the Biden campaign stands in Georgia, although my sources are also saying that there do seem to be a fair number of ticket splitters, people that are voting for Joe Biden, but who are also voting for David Perdue. So that underscores this trend that perhaps people are voting for Republican senators, but are willing to take a look at Joe Biden, Savannah.
All right, Casey, thank you. And let's look at some of the Senate races at this hour. There's a hot race going in Arizona between Mark Kelly, the former astronaut, and Martha McSally, the incumbent there. We are awaiting vote. Arizona does almost all of its voting by mail, but hasn't reported votes out yet in any significance. Here in Colorado,
get those in. Come on.
The incumbent is widely expected to potentially lose his seat tonight, and sure enough, former Governor John Hickenlooper is leading in that race.
All right, let's look at Kansas Senate. Too early in that race.
Michigan's Senate race, too early to call there. That's another Democrat who some felt might be on the rope, so we'll watch that one. Minnesota's got a Senate race
got
going.
the rope.
It is too early to call there.
Same story in New Mexico, too early.
I should have taken the faucet as I was passing it. Dang it.
The incumbent will hold on to his seat. We project him as the winner.
And let's look at South Dakota. We are projecting that Mike Rounds, the senator, the incumbent, will go back to Congress. And here's how it's shaking out at this hour. That is the breakdown. Remember that Democrats would have to gain 3 seats if they win the White House to gain control of the majority, and 4 if the president is reelected. We'll keep our eye on that. We'll take a quick break. Stay with us. Much more as election night coverage continues right here.
That's affecting it, but you never know. Dude, where the heck does these sounds come from?
Good morning. Welcome to Today.
What do you guys think? We're excited? We're back to work. We're keeping you safe.
Can I drink from the toilet, please?
Every morning on Today.
Dang it. What?
Good morning. Welcome to Today.
Look at that.
This fall, we're right there with you.
And that it comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes.
Back to school.
And people outside are doing their stuff.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death
Let me move that away.
After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time.
I'm kind of starting to wonder too, you know.
The time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
A real close-knit group of nurses who pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus. You're not just any patient, you're their friend.
These folks saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
Introducing the M for a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
We can get the sleep going.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
I see no hangover, so I did fall asleep, and just the right time to not get that. I need 2 stroke, thank you.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
Okay.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground.
This is the center of the campaign.
The 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell them right now?
On the ground.
The wind standing these flames are expected to last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester
Oh,
Holt.
they're on hold.
Welcome back. We've got a couple of new calls to make in the presidential race in Colorado. Biden is the projected winner. South Dakota, Trump, the projected winner.
Okay, so if you're keeping track at home, that's 1 apiece. Let's ring Garrett Haken. He's in Houston, Texas. Texas saw just an enormous outpouring of early vote. Garrett, what are we seeing now as the results are starting to come in?
Savannah, as those early votes are getting counted in the big cities, you're seeing Joe Biden build a bit of a firewall here in Harris County, in Dallas County, in Tarrant County. That's the Fort Worth area. That particular county is essentially tied, but big leads for Biden in Dallas County and Harris County, but perhaps not big enough. He's outperforming Hillary Clinton's margins in the state from 2016 significantly, but he's about on par with where Beto O'Rourke was in 2018 in a race that O'Rourke ended up losing by about 2.5 points. The other sign of concern for Democrats in the state, the Rio Grande Valley, traditionally Hispanic counties, places like McAllen, Texas, appear to be underperforming for Biden as to where Clinton was 4 years ago. The trick for Democrats here was always going to be...
Can you pee and swim at the same time? Yeah. Can you pee out of the water and swim at the same time? It looks like it.
But as these same-day votes start to come in, you just wonder if it's going to be enough for him to hold on in a state that was always a bit of a reach state for Democrats, but one where they felt a lot of demographic trends and people moving into the state might give them a shot at flipping the state for the first time in some 40 years. Savannah?
All right, Garrett, thank you. Interesting, though, to see that theme now in a different region of the country where the Latino vote is just not turning out for Joe Biden as...
Who would have expected that?
Look, I'm going to take you to Georgia in a minute, but I do want to make a point about North Carolina that's very important. Remember what we were going to tell you about this? Okay, so 78% of the vote is in, right? That's a lot of vote. Remember what the orange means. The orange is the vote that took place before today, okay? The yellow is what is the vote that's coming in, and we're waiting, basically, Biden's been sitting on his early vote lead, and what we're waiting to come in this last 21% of the vote in North Carolina is same-day vote. We know Trump won election day vote. The question is, did he win by enough to make up that margin? That's going to be how we're watching North Carolina over the next hour or so on there.
It's amazing that that many districts can outdo.
And it's election day vote right now that we have not seen that much of in North Carolina. It's just starting to come in. Some of the rural counties come in. I'll just give you an example. Here we are here. This is where either Biden wins or loses this. This is the Atlanta suburbs.
This is where he wins or loses. But,
vote into Cal County. So we've got a long way to go. But I want you to watch a county here. This is the next county out. The closest red county to Atlanta these days. Trump narrowly carrying it. And you can just see 4 years ago,
look at this weather.
20 points. And this is the question, and you see here Romney carried it by 31 points over President Obama. So the question is, and it's the same story as Texas, right? How much of an advantage can Biden build out of Atlanta and its suburbs, and can he keep encroaching, keep finding some exurban counties like Fayette there that I'm telling you about, and then overcome that strong rural vote for Donald Trump? It's basically the same story almost in every one of these battlegrounds.
All right, Chuck, thank you. We're going to take a quick break now. We'll be back with more Decision 2020 election night coverage in just a moment.
Always get those votes in early.
You ready to go to work?
No.
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala, Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
Washington feels more chaotic than ever.
It kind of is chaotic, but
left and right,
more than ever,
make sense of it all.
debatable. More than ever before. It is chaotic.
Washington
Trust
feels
me.
more chaotic than ever. It's my job to ask the
You
tough
guys
questions,
play the same
left and
thing
right,
over and
and help
over.
you make sense of it all.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
He's been ready.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus.
The story.
The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to
Every
Joe Biden and
angle.
President Trump, what do you want to tell him right now?
On the ground.
The winds fanning these flames are expected to last another
Hey, look,
24 hours.
California
And in depth.
West
We now have
Coast
2 vaccine
wildfires.
trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We excited?
Or back to work.
Going to
We're
school.
keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
Good morning. Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Open.
Welcome back. During the break, some new calls. Let's look at North Dakota. And President Trump is the projected winner in North Dakota.
In Alabama, President Trump is the winner there. There's also a Senate race going on there. We'll check in with that.
It's probably going to empty it.
And looking at Florida once again, checking in there. It is too close to call. But Trump leads in Florida. And in Texas right now.
Ooh, a tie.
Well, it's only been 25 minutes since the polls closed in Texas and Arizona. A couple of states
Come on.
that folks are going to be watching very, very closely. We'll continue to monitor it. We've got much more election coverage to come here on NBC. We'll be back in just a few.
You guys take too many breaks. Your breaks are too long. Just do it straight.
Good morning.
Like,
Welcome to Today. We're glad to have you with us.
This fall, we're right there with you. Whether you're back to school.
What do you guys think? We excited?
Or back to work. We're keeping you safe.
I love being back.
Every morning on Today.
Police murder of unarmed black men has been an American way of death across centuries. After seeing the most comprehensive police reform bill ever introduced in Congress, I've begun to wonder if now is the time. If now is the time the protesters finally win.
oh, look, here we go. We finally got it.
Weeknights at 10 on MSNBC.
Took long enough.
You ready to go to work?
I'm so ready to go to work.
She's Joe Biden's choice to be next in line. But who is Kamala Harris? Join me, Joy Reid, as I explore her life's journey from Oakland to Washington on my 6-part podcast, Kamala Next in Line. New episodes every Monday. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts.
It's cool.
Nurses who pulled together when their boss needed help battling coronavirus. You're not just any patient. You're their
Why is he going?
Saved my life. Thank God that there are people who want to run towards a pandemic as opposed to running away from a pandemic.
Introducing the MSNBC Daily, featuring written perspectives by experts you know and trust. For a better understanding of the stories that matter most. Check out the MSNBC Daily today at msnbc.com.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got
got some breaking news.
Are people there concerned about what impact this could have on the election?
It's news made for your streaming world.
Okay. How'd you fall through there? I put you on top of the table, you stupid lantern thing. Okay.
Watch what they do, not what they say.
President Trump and Joe Biden hit the trail. At the center of this campaign, coronavirus. The story. The battleground blitz as we enter the final stretch of the 2020 race.
From every angle.
If you were sitting here talking to Joe Biden and President Trump, what would you want to tell him right now?
On the ground.
The winds fanning these flames are expected to
Okay.
last another 24 hours.
And in depth.
We now have 2 vaccine trials on hold. Should people be concerned?
NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
It is almost 9:30 in the East. Let's show you where we are right now.
All right, Florida, too close to call, but the president is leading. A lot of the vote is in, so we anticipate a call coming up pretty soon. In Pennsylvania, it is too early to call, and that may well be a race that lasts for days.
Let's look at Texas. This is a place that Joe Biden has tried to turn blue. It is too early in Texas right now. Arizona, it is too early as well.
Let's take a look at Arizona, see how much vote is in at this hour. Too early to call. It doesn't look like they've reported any, but let's go to Michigan now. Too early to call there, but that is a battleground one, closely watched, one that Joe Biden has got to
One very closely to watch.
this year. North Carolina, too early to call.
I believe.
Another one that the Democrats had hoped to flip.
We've been keeping a big eye on Ohio as well. 60% of their 18 electoral votes. That's too early to call right now. And Georgia as well. This is another state.
I believe, yeah, this, I believe, is the way I need to go.
Too early in Georgia.
The map's starting to fill out a little bit, but we've got the big remaining questions. I don't believe we've yet to call a battleground, Chuck, so...
Well, we haven't, and we certainly haven't seen a flip.
Battlegrounds are too close to call.
You know, we have an idea where it's headed because we're telling you. You think Trump is leading here. We're at 80%. Let's look at how, and this is North Carolina, and this to me is the next shoe to drop here. I think we see is the
Drop that shoe, please.
As you can see, Joe Biden's margin is now less than 100,000, still 20%, still 1 million votes to go. That you know, right now the way that's even, let's see, it's these gray counties that we don't have anything in yet. And if you want an idea, this one next to Raleigh here, this is something that's expected to be a big Trump county. You know, this empty county here, Franklin's expected to be a Trump county. This one here, so you can see this is why there's pessimism on the Democratic side, optimism on the Republican side when it comes to where we are with North Carolina. And let me take you over to Georgia. Let's just get an update there to see. Look at this vote's trickling in here. 40%. We're still
A trickle.
I see more than 1% out of DeKalb. We still got a long way to go in Georgia with the same game. But going back to North Carolina, that's what you're going to keep following. That should be the next shoe to drop. I think before 11 o'clock.
All right, let's turn to Andrea Mitchell right now. Talk a little bit about the expectations leading in tonight, the worries about Russia and Iran and meddling in our election. Any signs of any of that?
No signs of any cyber. There was a lot of misinformation leading up to the election, but no signs of any cyber hacking. But we've now learned from 2 sources.
It was all the rage last time.
Military action against government-linked hackers in both Russia and Iran. It was described as, by official sources to us, as annoyances, not flushing blows, similar to what they did in the run-up to the 2018 midterms. We've seen no signs, as I say, of cyber hacking so far targeting this election from Russia or Iran. They did take this action preemptively. Last time they put them out of action for a couple of days, and then the government hackers were back in action again.
But the biggest worry seems
Oh, where's it at?
And that we certainly saw plenty of signs of, and that they announced it a couple of weeks ago, and they've been tracking it, Russia, Iran, and to a lesser degree China.
All right, Andrea.
I believe we have a call in South Carolina to make in the presidential race. Again, an expected result. The president will take South Carolina, but well, let's stay on this subject of national security, we've got 4 former secretaries of Homeland Security joining us. Tom Ridge and Michael Chertoff, who served under President George W. Bush, and Janet Napolitano and Jay Johnson. They served under President Obama, and I had the pleasure of speaking to all of you last week. All of you had a concern that Americans feel reassured about the integrity of the election. I'll start with you, Secretary Chertoff. How are you feeling tonight about how the election has played out so far?
I just bought out of all of Tamu's food again, so...
concerns we had turned out not to have come to fruition. I think there was a big concern about violence that might interfere with people's ability to actually go to the polls on election day, or interference with the voting process, or even potentially government agents being present in a way that would be intimidating. And the reporting I've seen suggests that other than a few sporadic instances of potential voter intimidation, largely this has gone, reasonably smoothly. So it looks, at least in terms of the issue of
boom,
to go to the polling
all
places
hunger
and
gone.
Vote, we've avoided any serious problems. Now, of course, we still have the question of the count and the result, and that could very well be on occasion foresee some more disruption.
That brings me to Secretary Ridge, who, by the way, hails from the great state of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And when we talked earlier, Secretary Ridge, I think you said many, many times, November 3rd, today is the last day to cast your ballot. It is not the last day to count your ballot. Are you concerned that we may have a days-long, perhaps longer process in Pennsylvania before us?
Well, I think we're going to have a day or days-long process in several states. I know there are several states that didn't begin processing ballots until a day or two before the November 3rd, and Pennsylvania today didn't begin processing its ballots until 7 a.m. this morning. But frankly, I think we've seen, and I follow up on my colleague, Secretary Chertoff, what we've seen today, I think, is the respectful presence of Republicans and Democrats at the polls, acting and respecting one another's expression of preference. I mean, we've had very few reports of fraud, very few reports of intimidation, in spite of all the pre-polling anxiety and some communities' fear. I'll give you a perfect example. I decided to vote in person today, showed up at 6:45. By then, there were already 60 people in line. Some people had a MAGA.
Oh, there we go.
A couple people had Biden shirts on, but everybody was there, mask, social distancing, respecting each other's right to cast a vote. I think in considerable measure, it's a good news day for America. We respected each other so far, and I believe we will continue to respect the outcomes in 4 or 5 states who we may not know for a day or two.
Well, let's ask somebody who knows a little bit about that, Secretary Napolitano. You had a governor's race in Arizona that got stretched out a little longer than you probably would have preferred. What's your advice to folks who are watching, especially if we do have these states where it just comes down to the wire and it takes some time to count?
Yeah, that's right. In 2002, when I ran for governor in Arizona the first time, my opponent didn't concede for 6 days after the election, and we just had to be patient. I actually went to a spa in California and just got out of town for a couple of days.
Well, maybe that's some good advice for all of us.
Exactly.
Oh, that's nice.
But I think the point is that today went well. It went well for America, it went well for our democracy, but now we need to be patient and let the states that are slower to count their votes so that everybody's right to vote is respected.
Secretary Johnson, what's on your mind tonight?
I agree with my colleagues. We're pleased that there weren't the problems we were concerned about at polling places. Andrea noted a few weeks ago the Iranians had attempted to intimidate voters. We do know that the Russians targeted a vast number of different sources of information. Our government does not know what they intend to do about that. But I think all of us are reassured by the strength of our democracy. You know, my
Republic,
son is in the Coast Guard.
but
He's deployed
anyway.
overseas right now. and he voted online several thousand miles away. He really wanted to vote. He voted online, and today he got this postcard in the mail to our home in New Jersey. Your ballot has been received by the state of New Jersey. So I feel pretty good about that.
Well, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, 4 individuals who've served our country. Thank you for your time and for your care. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's, you know, it's worth noting we've not heard the word chaos much today. A lot of.
Nor have we seen it.
Nor have we seen it, obviously. Let's go to Hallie Jackson right now. Hallie, let's talk a little bit about North Carolina and how the president's campaign is looking at those numbers right now.
Yeah, they're looking at them in, I think, a positive light, Lester. I just got off the phone with one source close to the campaign who's talking about how they believe that North Carolina could be potentially a good thing for them. It is going to be tighter than in 2016. Back in 2016, President Trump won by about 3.5 points in that state. Right now, the returns do show, as we're looking at the numbers here, I'm looking at the percentage, 80% of the vote in. The key thing is something that we have been talking about a couple of times tonight.
Oh, there it is.
Up there near Wake County by the Raleigh-Durham metro area where the vote
Give me
still
that.
is not
I need
in.
to
So
burn
those are some
it.
of the things that I think the Trump team is looking at, but they are feeling, I think, more positive about North Carolina. That was a state that they'd been optimistic about,
Get in the
not
barrel.
necessarily slam dunk confident the way that they entered the night thinking about as it relates to Florida, for example. So still lots to watch in North Carolina. I will say, as it relates to Florida, I think there is a sense now from folks I've talked to in the last hour or so that they're looking or hoping to do some attempted extrapolation from where they performed well in Florida to see if that is going to extend it to some of these other key states like Ohio, like Georgia. Those are the other 2 that I'm hearing a lot about tonight, Lester.
All right. Thank you, Hallie.
Let's go to North Carolina because we are watching to see what happens there. She's in Morgan Radford is in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's one of the places where the suburban vote could be key for Joe Biden. But Morgan, right now we're waiting for the day of vote, which could break for Trump.
That's right, Savannah. We are at the Mecklenburg County Board of Elections, and this is actually where those physical ballots are now being reported from the precincts and being counted. I want to show you how it's working here on the ground.
Okay, I think I'm gonna call it a night, but yeah.
There are 2 important things. There's one, the physical ballots, and I'll show you where those are being stored and